Oh,
Hey.
welcome to another exciting show. And next to me, well, not exactly in the same place, is Chris the gardener. And welcome to Chris. And
Hello, Eric. Thank you for the invitation.
well, I'm normally Chris, but I thought with two Chris's, it'd be a bit like the Monty Python thing,
We'd
won't it?
we'd be crisscrossing a lot, wouldn't we?
That's right. So I'll be Eric the flatulent tonight.
Not a problem.
Now, you'll probably notice, those of you that are observant, there's a third member of the team. Uh, Deb's not here. And unfortunately, poor Deb, a close relative, her father, is about to pass over, and I've been through it. I've lost both my parents, and it's not exactly it's an emotional roller coaster. So if we could send some positive energy and some positive thoughts in Deb's direction, because she's seeing her poor dad, and he's on his last, and it is very, very moving. So, let's send some positive thoughts to Deb, and help her along. And I know what it's like. It can be very lonely in situations like that. It can also be your mind's just going, oh, well. And the worst thing is when you lose your second parent, because then you're an orphan. And I never forget it. When I lost my parents, my neighbour said to me, "Welcome to the Orphans Club," and he was right, really. So there we go. Now, what else was I going to say? Oh yes. Now, Chris. Sorry to mention my own name, but Chris has actually come from a long line of farmers and gardeners and that people who work sort of with agriculture. And it reminds me, when I was at school, there was a little girl that had a farming family, and she was in late one morning. And the teacher said, "Excuse me, Dorothy, why are you late this morning?" She said, "Well, I had to bought a cow." She said, "Well, couldn't your father do it?" She said, "No, it has to be a bull." Sorry, it's a terrible joke, isn't it? Right, so without further ado, let's crack on. Now, we know what's going on. We've got the Hunger Games. And when you go around the supermarkets now with their plastic food and you see the price of things like broccoli has gone through the roof. It's doubled in price where I live in about, what, 6 months. This time last year, you could buy broccoli for around about 40 pence. Now it's about 85 and 90 pence. So it's doubled.
Everything, Eric.
Yeah,
Everything's gone through the roof, hasn't it, mate?
yeah, that's right. And Chris tonight is going to sort of point us in the right direction, because the thing is the people that's going to survive are the people that can grow their own food, and also practical people. And so, Chris, you were telling me the other day about potatoes. I mean, what is for novices, what is the easiest things to grow, the
Well,
quickest things?
I mean, spuds are just they're just so easy. You just literally you need a deep container. You don't even need it to have a garden. You can do it in an old bin. You can do it in an old water butt. You can buy a big plastic container or whatever. But the thing with spuds is if you've got not a lot of room and not a lot of experience, at least you're growing something that will fill your belly. Nutritionally, they're not great, but they will fill your belly and they'll stop you feeling hungry and they'll give you something. But really, the thing is, Eric, it's all about maximizing the space you've got and utilizing what you've got. You don't even need to be like experienced. Any fool can buy a packet of seeds and a bag of compost, fill a container up, and plant some seeds. And you learn as you go along. I mean, this year I made a bit of a grave mistake. I've grown a lot of carrots this year, and I stupidly, me and the missus, we were just scattering these seeds into tiny little pots to get them started. And I ended up with like 100 seeds in each of these little pots. And it took me literally 2 weekends, a Saturday and a Sunday, both weekends, to thin these little buggers out and put them into bigger pots. It's a learning curve, mate. Everything is, but the important thing is to try and have a go. It's not just about providing food for yourself, mate. It's about reconnecting with the soil. It's about getting your hands in the dirt as well, and about doing, it's about taking some responsibility for yourself. We're truckatarians, as Max Egan calls us. Everything we have comes on a truck. It's not healthy, mate, in terms of like you're
Right.
relying on other people. You need to be self-reliant, and I think the best thing you can do to start doing that is to sort your garden out and grow a bit of food. And it doesn't just need to be food. You can make yourself aware of what's out there that you can forage as well. I mean, I've already got a group of us, my mum, my dad, my wife. There's going to be a few of us. We're going out blackberrying this autumn, mate.
Oh yeah, I do that. Yeah.
You know, that's food for free. And you can bag that up and you can freeze it, mate, and you can eat it 6 months later. You know, there's so much. Or you can make jam. You know,
I do
there's
that. Yeah.
yeah, my mum, she's always making jam, mate. We've got pots and pots of it. But again, you make use of what's there. There's the fit you people have got to stop relying on other people for anything now. And I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
do mean anything, mate.
And also, it
I
tastes
don't,
better, doesn't it?
mate. I've we've got some strawberries already that have come.
Yeah.
Honestly, mate, they're the best strawberries I've ever tasted. And I'm sure part of that's because we've grown them as well. There's a little bit of that in there. I mean, I've had fresh strawberries from my granddad before and things like that. But it just tastes so much better when you grow it yourself, and you know that it's not been sprayed. You know, I don't use any kind of sort of anything that's not natural. Doesn't come into my garden. The only exception to that is that I've got a non-glyphosate based weed killer that I use on bindweed that comes up between cracks in the paving slabs, because there's not an awful lot else I can do about it apart from that, mate. So, but other than that, there's no, you know, it's all organically grown, and it's grown with love as well, mate. And I think that makes a big difference. I think if you get a lot of pleasure out of it as well. Just, you know, from
Well, that's it. Yeah. And also the taste. I mean, I actually grow cabbage from stumps. I
yeah,
don't put seed down, and I have cabbage leaves from a sort of like a spring cabbage, and the taste.
yeah,
I've grown it myself. I don't cook it. I don't boil it. I just eat it raw. And it's
yeah, yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah.
It's so you know, it's unbelievably gorgeous. But one thing, by the way, what I forgot to mention at the introduction, it's Chris is on the show thanks to one person, and that's
Robert, yeah,
Robert Dorr. So
top
thanks,
man.
mate. Thanks, Robert.
Top man, Robert. Yeah, yeah,
And
he's a lovely guy.
yeah,
We've engaged a few times on another show on the chat forum, and he's a lovely bloke. He puts some well thought through comments.
yeah,
And I watched the podcast that he did with you recently, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, top man, Robert.
he is. And also, I think it was on Richie Allen, was it? Richie Allen's
It
show.
was Richie
You
Allen.
on
Yeah,
quite a
yeah,
lot, yes. And but the thing is, back to plants and potatoes and again, what you buy in the shops, you realise how tasteless the vegetables are that you buy
totally.
in
Yeah,
supermarkets.
yeah.
It's just
Do you
sort of,
know?
you know,
I grew up on veg that was grown by my grandparents on their allotments. We never had any need to buy any veg. They grew it all. And it wasn't until I was 16 and I got a job working in a supermarket when I was doing my A levels. And I'd never seen carrots that were perfectly straight, and
mm,
they didn't look anything like the carrots that I'd seen. I mean, the ones you get that I grow, they're wonky, but again, they taste so much better, mate. But
I know.
they it's almost like they've bred all the taste out of everything to get it to look perfect. They'd rather, and I think people buy that as well, though, Eric. I think people
Mm,
would rather buy something that looks right. You know, like, I mean, again, I remember working in this supermarket. Whenever any meat went brown, even if you knocked it down to half the half price, you'd struggle to sell it. People just would not buy brown meat. But that's what happens to meat. It goes brown.
yeah, that's right. Lamb
Yeah,
does.
what stops it is the gas and that they pump in, and all the chemicals that keep it red.
Mm.
But you know, meat is supposed to be brown after it's been.
I know. And if it's not in cellophane and all hygienically kept, I mean, with fowl, like chickens, they used to hang the meat, didn't they?
Yeah,
For
that's what my
and,
granddad did. We used to go
yeah,
around on a Sunday for Sunday lunch, and you'd walk into the wash house, and there'd be half a dozen geese, a couple of rabbits, pheasants, just hanging from the ceiling. They'd hang there for days, mate, before he'd done anything with them. And
mm,
I'm still here, mate, and I've eaten plenty of game stew and things like that. So, you
oh,
know,
yeah,
there's skills as well, Eric, that people don't have
mm,
anymore. I mean, about 10, 12 years ago, I was working for a sales. I was working as a salesman for a firm in a little place called Docking up on the Norfolk coast. And one of the sales directors, he was into shooting. And I'd come out of work on a Monday evening, and there'd be 2 geese hanging off one wing mirror of my car and a couple of pheasants hanging off the other, because he knew that I knew how to dress, and so he'd do that for me. But I was the only member of staff there out of about 40 staff that would have that, and he would have done it for everyone, but nobody else had any interest in taking him up on it. Whereas again, I find that quite, yeah, it's a little bit of a worry, isn't it?
It's because I think the thing is that what our ancestors took for granted. I mean, we've become squeamish. Let's put it that way. We have become squeamish. But what our ancestors took for granted, we can't, because, for example, simple things like making fire. How do you make fire? Now, I've never made fire unless I've used a match or a flint, a flint thing, what they call it, flint rod.
Yeah.
But I've seen Ray Mears do it, and I think I could probably do that, but I haven't actually done it. That's the thing.
No, I'm with you on that. But then I've got a collection of about 200 lighters, mate, and enough gas to keep me going for 2 lifetimes. So,
yeah, I like that.
And flints as well, mate. So again, I'm ready, mate, for when the shit bomb comes, mate. We're ready here in our house. We've got, I've got batteries, I've got candles, mate. I've got tinned food coming out my ears, mate.
Same here.
And the thing is, I've got lots of seeds as well for stuff like radishes, mate. You can grow a radish from a seed to something you can eat in 4 weeks. So
really?
Yes, mate. Radishes are so quick turnaround, like 4 weeks.
Radishes don't like me. That's the big problem.
No, I'm not a fan of them, mate. I'll be honest with you. I don't really enjoy them, but push comes to shove, mate. Let's say worst case scenario happens. They institute some kind of weather weapon. They create like a monsoon. Everybody's crops get flooded. You've got nothing. Then you've got something there that within 4 weeks you can have some kind of substance, mate. The tinned food. I don't ever want to have to touch the tinned food. The plan is that is there for backup, mate. Only the idea is that we try and get as self-sufficient as we can, or we trade and buy with people within the village. That's the other thing that we do a lot more now.
Yes.
We get our eggs from people in the village, and you form relationships with people through that. Most of them don't potentially see what I see coming, but they are aware that things are changing and the availability of food is not what it was 3 years ago,
Well, you're right, but the funny thing is, I mean, I won't say the exact location, but something I was thinking about today. Now, you live in East Anglia, and hundreds of years ago, do you think they must have thought, what should we call this place? I know, we'll call it after a car that will be invented in a couple of 100 years' time. Why do they?
I know. Why are we the only bit of England that's got the Anglia bit in? That does kind of like.
This is what gets me, because I live right on the edge of the south part of East Anglia.
Yeah.
And you live in the north part. So why don't I live in South Anglia and you live in North Anglia? I don't get it.
It's bizarre,
mate.
East Anglia? I'm in East Anglia, but I live in West Norfolk as well. So throw that one in. It's all, mate. I think I live
in Southeast Hertfordshire. So.
Yeah.
And you could say it's East Anglia. It's sort of.
Well, it is
the driest part of England.
Yeah, I guess you could probably get the Anglia news there, could you, if you really wanted to?
Oh yeah. I picked up. Yeah, when I had a telly, I could pick up. I could do.
See, round here, most people get Look North, which is hilarious because they get all the news from Scunthorpe and Hull. It's just hilarious, mate. How things. I mean, I grew up the first 12 years of my life. We got Yorkshire television news, and I lived in Norfolk. And but that we couldn't get Anglia where I lived at the time, so it's insane, mate.
You could pick up Kent here. You could actually on the radio. But the thing is, if you nowadays used to be able to pick up. I don't listen to the radio now, But I think if I started to listen to BBC Radio Kent again, I'd need psychiatric help.
Any
That's so awful.
Yeah, any BBC broadcast should come with a health warning, mate. I think.
Oh, it is. It'd have to improve to be rated as crap, I think. But shall we have a quick look in chat, because we've got some questions.
Yeah, go for it.
So first of all, we got. I'd like to say good evening to everybody, because I can't go through everybody. So please excuse me if we've got a lot in chat. We've got here, got Louise sending Deb loving thoughts and wishes.
That's
yes,
nice.
She does need that now, because poor girl, she's really going through it. So, and we've got here another one from Louise Wilcox. Broccoli was 75p here. Now it's bloody Nora, £2.10.
That's insane. Yeah.
And also it lasts forever, and it goes black inside. I've never seen food rotting like that. It normally rots from the outside in. This rots from the inside out.
Right.
Have you ever come across that? A bit weird, isn't it?
I've come across it with certain things before. Yeah.
Louise Wilcox says, I'm growing rooster potatoes. I've got 3 beds, and even the bonfire pile has sprouted them. Ha ha.
3 bonfire potatoes.
Is there a particular grain which is better? I mean, is it reds or whites?
There's hundreds. It's like, mate. I mean, I proper got into gardening 2 years ago when I started the gardening business. That was when I really got and started paying attention and taking an interest and wanting to learn a lot more than what I already knew. What I've learned in 2 years is that you are never going to learn the every strain of every variety of plant, vegetable, or fruit. There are some that must go into the hundreds, thousands, mate. With spuds, again, I can't even remember the name of the ones I planted, mate. I just looked and I thought, right, well, they sound nice. I like the description. We'll give them a go this year. And if they're good, I've got the label somewhere. I've kept the label, so I'll know what they are for next year. But just important things. Just have a go, mate. Try something. If it works, then brilliant. If it doesn't, if it's not what you like, you see, everyone's got different ideas on what's a good potato. Again, this is what I've learned through is going out and doing other people's gardens. There's 100 different ways to cut a hedge, mate. There's 100 different ways to grow potatoes. Everybody's got a different idea, a different opinion on what's right and what's wrong. My advice is have a go, see what works for you. Utilize what you've got, whatever space you've got, use it. Just try and just start growing. That's I mean, if Louise is growing potatoes, brilliant. That's great. More people need to do that, mate. And what we need to do as well is we need to share what we grow. You're going to have an excess at some point. Share with others. I've been giving plants to people, mate. I've just been giving little chili plants and things like that to people, and like, look, have a go on this. Stick it on your kitchen windowsill. Just keep it wet, and you'll have some chilies.
Can you grow potatoes all year round? I mean, if you shove them in the ground.
I think, mate, you can grow. I think you get late set and early set ones, so you can get what are called late set potatoes that you do grow. You put them in later, and you'll get spuds in the winter. I think it depends on the weather that winter. Whether you can, I've dug up spuds in January before for people, mate, because they've been there and they've come good. It really does depend on what kind of winter you have.
Yeah,
this winter winter's so good.
What I found in supermarket spuds now, they go to seed very quickly, very quickly.
And
can you just
especially especially the organic ones, mate. They go to seed real quick.
Yeah. So can you just cut the eyes off and put them in the ground? Would it grow spuds from that?
Well, I'm not sure. I've done that myself, mate. So I'm still waiting to find out. I did it about 2 weeks ago. I found some potato eyes from my seed potatoes in the shed on the floor. So I've popped them in a pot, mate, and we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that one. But I've been told that you can grow potatoes from skins. Again, I've not tried it, so I don't know whether it's true, but this is something that I've been told. You can literally put potato peelings into a pot and grow potatoes from them. I can't verify that, but I'm going to give it a try at some point.
How do you keep the slugs? Because where I live, it's in the Lee Valley, and it's clay soil, and there's hardly any hedgehogs. Well, there's no hedgehogs around. to keep the population of slugs and snails down. And anything, I mean, cabbages, I've got to grow them in the greenhouse. I can't grow them anywhere else
Yeah,
because the slugs will have them and
yeah.
snails. Potatoes, called the bastards drill into the potatoes.
Really?
How do you keep them out? I mean, the bastards.
Well, you
You
can
know,
put
I can't blame them, but can't.
no,
You know.
no. Well, you can put things like straw around your crops, which will help to keep slugs and snails away. They can't maneuver over straw very well.
Really?
Apparently so. And you could also buy poisons which you can use if that's bad. But what I do mostly is you just got to police it when the weather's wet, when you know they're going to be out there. I go out at night with a torch, and I find them and I pick them off and I kill them, and that's how I deal with them, mate. Um, you know, you're never going to keep. You're always going to have bits eaten out of things, mate.
Mm.
Pigeons as well. They're notoriously bad for.
Oh,
They've
they
had
like
all the
cabbages.
they like everything, mate. Pea shoots. They love pea shoots. I keep my peas indoors till they're about 2, 3, 4 centimeters high, mate, before I even put them outdoors. Because if I try and grow peas outdoors, mate, the pigeons just decimate them. And kale as well. I've got
Really?
actually, yeah. What I've got, mate, is we used to have me and my missus. My wife's a little bit crazy, and she goes through little phases. And one of the phases, about sort of 8 years ago, was she started rehoming hamsters. So we had
Oh,
4 hamsters at one point. And the little buggers, they die within a couple of years, mate. It's devastating.
mm,
You get attached to them and then they peg
mm,
it like 2 years later. But anyway, what I use over a lot of things is that I've got like the tops of the hamster cages, like the wire top.
yeah.
So I'll start things off in trays and I'll just pop one of those over. And that keeps the pigeons off, at least, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But again, it's just about trying to utilize things that you've already got. You don't need to spend a lot of
Mm.
money to grow food, mate.
Well, I like the idea what you said about tubs. You can grow potatoes in tubs. As you said, anything really.
Mate, literally anything that's a container, any kind of receptacle, mate. You could probably grow them in welly boots if you wanted to,
Yeah.
you know, just anything that you
What
can
about
fill up.
tyres? Because I've got some tyres in my garden. Which,
Tires are good. Yeah, you can stack tires up and use them as like raised beds.
mm,
And the good thing about obviously having, I mean, I don't know what it's like where you live, but around here we've got major problems with muntjac. You know the little deer?
I know. Yes, yes. We got them round here, Bone Jacks. Yes.
I mean, they are decimating. One of my customers who's got 3 acres in the village that I live in, I go to him. I spend all day Friday with him. He's
Hmm.
he's a lovely old boy. We've become really close the last couple of years. His wife passed last year, and
Oh,
he had me
sorry.
over gardening the day after. The family decided that it would be good for me to go, and we spent the day together. So I was with him the day after his wife died. But anyway, he's got 3 acres, and the muntjac, mate, they're just they're so destructive. They chew the bark. They've chewed the bark off all his fruit trees. Um, and the only way you'll protect against them is by having a secure fence, mate. A
Mm.
secure high fence.
But they're
They
not
can.
native of this country, are they? They're
No,
from
no,
China.
no. They've got no predators. That's the problem, mate. I mean, round here where I am in West Norfolk, they are rife. I mean, they walk down my street at night. You can hear them barking, walking down the street. Just literally, they. And if you don't shut the gate, mate, they're in the front garden, and
I know. I've had them in my garden,
yeah, yeah,
muntjacs,
and
and
they'll
that's before I put a fence up. Yeah.
yeah, they'll eat everything, mate. Like there's very few things they won't eat. They don't like daffodils and snowdrops because they're bitter. But in terms of veg, they'll eat everything pretty much apart from herbs. So
Amazing.
they don't really seem to like herbs. They don't seem to like things with too strong a flavour. But
Yeah.
everything they'll just kill it, mate. And rats I've had before, mate. I've had rats dig up all my
Really.
beetroot. Yeah, yeah. Rats dug up all my beetroot one year. Had a load of beetroot in a pot and come out and there's a rat hole and the rats had gone in and they'd had the beetroot out of the pot.
Something's had my spring onions. So I had a pot of spring onions and outside, and some bloody things eaten a lot right the way down. Tank literally nicked them straight out. So God knows what's
Right.
had then.
Yeah.
So
But don't
you
that
know,
would no, that wouldn't be. I mean, that muntjac, I think onions, they don't like things like
I
onions. So
think it might be a bird that's done
yeah,
it.
a bird of some description
Yeah.
maybe. That's sad. But it's again, it's part of growing veg, mate. You're going to have setbacks. You're gonna
That's right.
this year. I wanted to grow. You know the cherry tomatoes, the ones I got were called cherry falls. You
Oh
know the
yeah, I
ones that
grow them. I
flop.
like them.
Oh, I love them, mate. Well, I bought a packet of seeds this year. 27 seeds. It was only supposed to be 25. Got a bonus 2 seeds in the packet.
Excellent, excellent.
27. Lovely job. Set them all in, mate. Got them all going. Got them all to about sort of, I don't know, about an inch and a half high. They were looking really good. And I screwed up and I overwatered them, mate. And I've got 4 left. 4 left out of. But
really,
yeah, mate. I gave them. What happened was the missus had given them a drink that morning, and I hadn't realised. So the evening I come home from work and I thought, oh, I better water the tomatoes. And it was just one case of just overwatering them, mate, and boom, that was it. They all went yellow, and I've got, like I say, 4 I could rescue out of 27. So, you know,
it's
it happens.
surprising, isn't it? Because tomatoes, when they're going, they need a lot of water. But
they do.
What
yeah.
I buy cherry tomatoes from the supermarket, keep some back, and then grow the seeds from them.
You can slice
That's
the
what I
tomato,
generally do.
can't
Yes.
you? And literally just grow them from seed like that. Yeah.
But
Well,
Urban Fox has come in with one here. Whilst I agree it's sensible to grow things oneself if able, many people are not in a position to be able to do this, as it's not practical for them. Millions don't even have a garden. That is a point.
He has a point. They don't have a garden, but I know Urban Fox from Richie Allen. He put some great comments on there as well. He's a very sensible chap. But you do still have a windowsill, Chris. Eric, sorry, you still got a windowsill, mate. I've got on my windowsill in my kitchen. I've got my chili plants. I've got herbs growing. I've got most of my veg were all started off on the kitchen windowsill. You can find a way, even if you're just doing a little bit. Just growing a small amount of food for yourself. It's not just about it's the process, mate. I believe it's the whole. It will change your life in a lot of ways, I think. And I think there's something very good for the soul.
Get yourself some spring onions from the supermarket or somewhere. Cut the green bits off and leave the bulb at the bottom. Stick that in a pot. Shove it on a windowsill, and they'll regrow.
Boom. There you go.
That's it.
There's and also you can get window boxes that you can hang off the windowsills as well. You know, you can get. I appreciate what our man Mr. Fox is saying. I really do, but I do believe that you can still do something in some small way. And the other thing as well is you can engage with people who have got land that aren't using it. And you can approach them and say, look, I've noticed you've got this patch of land here. I see nothing's happening with it. I'd like to grow some vegetables. If I shared my vegetables, would you be open to I'm a firm believer, Eric, there's always a way around everything.
I agree with you there. I agree. And also, sometimes councils turn a blind eye, because there was a thing called guerrilla gardening.
A lot of guerrilla gardening, to the point now where the people that do the guerrilla gardening aren't even hiding their names and identities, because the local authorities, although they're not actually endorsing it as such, they're kind of basically saying, well, yeah, this is probably okay, you know. So it's, you know, and again, you don't need a garden to forage, mate. There's blackberries, there's you can make nettle soup. There's all sorts of things out there.
Oh yes,
that you can collect.
There's lots, and even if you live in a city, you still get a lot of wild plants. You still get stinging nettles in certain places and things like that.
And plenty of brambles, plenty of blackberry, briars, sweet briar bushes in cities. Plenty. I mean, you see them by railway lines all the time in urban areas. So,
as long as they're above dog cocking level, you'll be all right.
Yes, that's the thing, mate. Pick the ones that are above sort of waist height, and you're normally all right. And still give them a good wash when you get home.
The other one here is Louise Wilcott. She says the homegrown tastes better because they're not sprayed with herbicides or human manure.
Yeah, totally agree with that. That's the thing.
Louise has actually answered Urban Fox here. She said, like what you said, you grow them in window boxes.
Yeah.
Now, Louise has come in with a good one here. Has Chris tried vinegar on his bindweed problem?
I haven't. No. I'll give it a go. I'll stick some in a spray and I'll give it a go. Yeah. I'd rather use vinegar than the weed killer that he used. So yeah, I'll give that a crack.
Well, for example, I'm actually plagued with ants at the moment. They're all over my roses and everywhere.
Right.
And normally I spray them with oil of cloves, because what it does, it upsets the trail and the scent
Right.
smell. Doesn't kill them, but they go someplace else. They haven't this year. I've
Oh.
sprayed and sprayed and sprayed, and I don't like putting the other one is borax. You put borax with sugar, mix that with sugar. The ants eat it, take it back to the nest, and it kills them. I, I'm not that. I want to. I like to deter them,
Yeah.
because if you put something down and something else innocent will eat it and it kill them, and it goes along the
Absolutely.
chain.
Yeah.
So
And I
I
mean,
think, you know, but
all these
ants.
little organisms as well, all these things that cause
Mm,
us problems, they're still part of our the chain, the cycle. They you know, we need them as much as we need the veg that we're trying to protect them from. So I guess, you know, there's food for thought there as well. Perhaps I shouldn't kill the slugs, you know.
well,
But
I often think about that, and I mean, for example, I've actually looked up on how to get a hedgehog, because I thought, well, if I can get a hedgehog, and apparently, um, hedgehogs can roam up to 2 miles in an evening. Really little fellas,
oh mate,
two
they go. Have
miles
you
for a
seen them? Mate, they can shift when they want to.
yeah.
I mean, I used to live years ago. I lived in a little village, and we used to get them in our garden all the time. And we had a dog then. I mean, still got the dog, but yeah, she would go out and take an interest in them. And when they wanted to move, mate, they like that, and they're gone. And they can get through tiny little gaps in fences as well, mate. They're pretty adept at sort of, you know,
Well, they said you could adopt a disabled hedgehog,
yeah.
but it'd be trapped in your garden, which might be a bit cruel. And you might have to feed it. And I thought, well, I don't really
Mm.
want to do. You can
The
get
thing
blind
is, a
hedgehogs,
disabled
and
hedgehog isn't going to survive in the wild, mate. My mum worked for the RSPCA at
mm,
the wildlife hospital for 25 years, mate. She had a three-legged hedgehog called Fuzzy Peg that she brought home from work one day. He had about three good years in her garden, mate, and he seemed pretty happy. You know,
mm.
he was fed, looked after. I don't think he really cared that he couldn't roam too far. He wouldn't have survived in the wild, mate. So, you know.
Yeah, so perhaps it's as well. The other thing here, we've got an insider here, which says here, this is Pandora Chaser 2. Uh, Hiya, Fox, Louise, Mike, and Ralph. Robert gave me a heads up on Chris appearing.
See, Pandora
Where is
Chaser.
Robert tonight?
Oh
And,
yeah, hopefully he'll chip in at some point. I'm grateful
yes,
to Robert. I really am. He's like I say, he's a good man, and puts some very thought provoking comments on the
yes.
Richie Allen site. So,
He
but
says, it was it agreed, Fox, on lack of growing space. Some folks will swear, was it still be better involving the organic cooperatives for deliveries? Um, yeah,
but
I'm not
organic
into that.
food's expensive, mate. That's
Yeah,
the trouble. I mean, like I try and buy organic when I need to buy veg, and it's not cheap. I mean, we've got an old boy up the road. He's got three allotments, which are the other end of the road, and he sells a lot of veg from a little barrow out the front of his. So we pick up in the times when we haven't got stuff, we pick up from him when we can, because again, we know that he doesn't use any pesticides or anything. He grows his all
mm.
organically, and all he uses is horse manure. So happy days.
Well, the thing is, what I've found with these organic boxes, I haven't had them, but I know people that have. You tend to get a load of crap that you don't really want or don't like. I mean, there's certain
Yeah.
things that I don't. I'm not picky. I'll eat anything, but there's certain things that I don't go much on. But
Well, I don't.
now this is interesting. This is from Louise. She says docking is a couple of villages away from us. So
Well,
you got a neighbour there.
Docking is a couple of villages away from where I am now as well, Louise. So we might potentially be in the same village. You never know.
You never
Uh,
know. She might be
no,
living next door to you, all you know.
she could be. Mate. You don't know. Um, I mean, there are a few people that live near to us who are. I hate the phrase awake. I really do, but
I do.
you know what I mean. People that have got an idea of what's going on. We don't socialize or do anything special with them, but we do speak to them when we see them, and they're people that, again, if the shit hit the fan, they're people I know that we could speak with, and they would be up for providing assistance and receiving assistance. You know, they know what's going on, they know what's coming.
I
And
think
it's
there's a
good to
big
have
difference
people like
though
that around you.
between urban awake and country awake. And I've noticed there's a big difference there because the urban awake, they wouldn't, not necessarily, but most of them wouldn't survive. The country awake probably would. Um,
Yeah, the cities are going to be hell, mate. I mean, we didn't live in a city before we moved here. We lived in a town, but that was key. Was 5 years ago we
mm,
took a big gamble. We put the house on the market. We took on a new mortgage, and we're not going to pay that off until we're into. Well, my wife will be 72. I'll be 67. But at the same
mm,
time, I recognised that we needed to get out of
mm,
an urban area and into a rural area, because what's coming is you're going to be so much better if you're in a rural um,
I agree.
setting. There's a bigger sense of community here as well. People
Mm.
speak. You don't pass people in the street in this village and not say hello. It's it's
That's
nice.
nice because
Yeah.
I want to. I've been had plans to move out because where I live, I mean, it was semi-rural, but they're building up estates all the way round.
Yeah.
And what was countryside is being gobbled up. It's a bit too close. London is sort of stretching out, and it's getting a bit
Yes,
too
it is,
close to
mate.
where I live. And
Massively.
I detest London. I really
Yeah.
hate the place. And in fact, I just don't like cities. I don't like built-up places. So
No,
you know,
no, no, no. It's impersonal, isn't it? That's the thing. There's no
well,
human.
I like looking at trees and beautiful scenes.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to look at concrete and
No.
bricks and grime. You know, it's just. Ugh. But going back to chat, we've got here. Urban foxes, yes, you can, or if you know how, but it's not going to be enough to keep you alive. I suppose he's talking about the window boxes. I
Yeah,
still maintain that many things are just a non-starter for many people. No chance I could do it here. Yeah, we can understand that, but at least it could substitute some of the stuff like
well, yeah, and I
onions
think
and money. You know, you'd save quite a bit of money, not a lot, but you'd still save some money by growing some fresh vegetables.
again, though, I mean, for the fox, I'd refer him back to the fact that okay, so maybe you haven't got the facility, but maybe there's somebody locally that you can befriend, an older person perhaps, where you could give a bit of time, help them
Mm.
to tend their garden, and in return for that, receive some veggies for it. And again, that would be, that's something people need to do a lot more of. I think is helping others. Um, um, one of the guys I garden for, like I say, he's got 3 acres. It's insane. There's only me for a day on Friday. We're never going to keep on top of it. But in August, we've got a few people that I've gathered together, and we're all going to go over for the day. Nobody's charging him anything. We're just
Mm.
going to go over and give this old guy a hand and try and get a bit more of his garden sorted out. And things like that. If you could do that and you could get a little bit of veg out of it in return, you'd also have a very, very good feeling in your belly when you've done it. Helping others for me and for my wife, we both believe it's the most important thing you can do.
Mm.
It enriches you in so many ways, mate. Going out of your way for
It
people,
does,
it
but
really does.
also, I mean, I've been on a lot of these foraging walking. Well, I've been on a couple of foraging walks, and you realise that even if you haven't got a garden, if you live in a flat, you can still go to places and it's
Absolutely.
surprising what's out there, what you can eat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
I
just
mean,
you need
springing it,
to read a few books.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. You got to be careful with some things. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of hemlock. There's some growing behind the wall where I live in the lane, just above my garden, and you don't touch that. That's the worst poison ever.
well,
Hemlock.
shrooms as well, mate. I mean, shrooms can
Yeah.
be like deadly. If you eat the wrong mushrooms, you can end up, in
Yes,
a really bad way.
I
But
never touch mushrooms. Never touch them. My attitude: keep well alone. I don't.
I used to pick a certain variety when I was in my teenage years. There was a particular spot around where I lived, and if you went at 5 o'clock on a early autumn morning, you would see dozens of teenagers running around looking for certain types of mushrooms. But that's the only ones I've really indulged in. So, and that was a long time
Yes.
ago. So,
And I think it's Beatles sung about them, didn't they? But not wrong. This is Pandora Chaser 2. Not wrong with being prepped, even if it simply saves you money on food inflation in the long run. That's quite
absolutely,
right.
yeah, totally spot on. I mean, that happened with us. I mean, I was prepped before the sickness, before that started. We were prepped before then, and I mean that served us well during then, because there were times when you'd go to supermarkets and the shelves would be bare, absolutely bare. So having been prepped before that was useful. We dug into a bit of, and again, like the lady says, I mean the prices have gone nuts. So if you've got stuff in already, you quids in, aren't you? Because you've got it at the cheaper price.
Well, that's it. That's it. I mean, the thing I won't be, because it's quite difficult, I won't be growing is broccoli. But not tell you another one. I was talking to you the other day when we was doing a test run about growing up. There's the keyhole garden where you have like a compost heap in the middle, and you put like a garden around it, like a keyhole, so that
Right.
you don't have to water so much. So your compost rots down, it
Oh, yeah.
provides
Beach.
nutrient
Yeah.
for you. But you need a lot of space for that. What I'm doing, I'm going up and having like a small tube, guttering actually, that you can buy cheap from Wicks or somewhere, drilling
Yeah.
holes in the side of it, and then
Yeah.
putting my kitchen waste down there, putting a lid on it because it stops flies and that, wedging it
Right.
down. And as that rots down, you have like that soil around the outside of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, not very good explanation this.
No, no, no. It
So
is.
that
I totally get what you're
the
saying. So
plants will
it's
get all
like
the
a drip
nutrition.
feed.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
So as
But
it rots down, it goes into the soil and it feeds the things that are growing around it.
sorry. Oh
As,
yes, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah. So
Yes.
that's, I mean, that's a fantastic. Yeah, I'd never thought of anything like that. I mean, I make my own compost. I compost as much as I can. Um, Inevitably, I end up buying it sometimes, but I always make sure I buy stuff that's organic. And I try and get
Yeah.
stuff with peat in it as well, which I know that makes me sound like a terrible person, but the trouble
Well,
is with peat-free compost is it doesn't retain the moisture. It dries out very quickly,
mhm.
and it's not a good growing medium a lot of the times.
Yeah, I know what you mean because but this is a we've got one here. What is it now? Urban Fox says 100 ways to cut a hedge, but how many ways to trim a bush?
As many
Now,
ways as you want, Mr. Fox.
yes, you're talking about a cunning stunt, I suppose.
Yes, yes,
I
it
said
sounds.
nothing rude there. You see, it's all very polite. So
No,
you've got
it's
people with
clever.
rude minds in chat. I just don't understand.
Sorry,
Right,
Chris. I'm just popping this on charge because I think it's going to,
okie dokie.
or I'm going to
It says here,
attempt.
Louis Wilcox says you can grow rooster potatoes all year round, preferably in a polytunnel, but you can't. But we can't afford them. Well,
Yeah,
rooster
polytunnel.
potatoes, polytoes are
Polytunnel.
expensive.
They are, but they are fantastic. A
Mm.
couple of customers. My dad's got a polytunnel. He grows like all year round stuff in there. They're brilliant. If you can afford a polytunnel, fantastic.
Now,
Because the other thing with a polytunnel as well is you can seal it and you can keep a lot of the pests out.
mm,
So
and so you not only keep sort of rodents and pests out, but election time you keep politicians out as well, don't they? Hello.
great place to hide as well. A polytunnel is a great place to hide.
Yes, and get a suntan in midwinter as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, it's just
Absolutely.
Ancient
Yeah.
Ruby says, Eric von Essex, is Chris related to you? I swear he looks like you. And also the other man you had on too. Who's the
Aren't
other
we all
man I had on
related?
too?
Aren't we all related to each other, Eric? I
Suppose
think
so.
that's the whole point. Is that we're
Yeah,
all here having this human experience
yeah.
in this whatever it is. I think it's probably a simulation, but we're all here, and we're all brothers and sisters, mate. And I think that's something perhaps that as well that we just need to recognise a little bit more.
There's a bit of a likeness there. I'm wondering. I mean, I wonder if you never know. We might be related somewhere down the road. I mean, my lot are from sort of bald English side of Wales and Cornwall, and then Germany. So
Well, yeah, I've got. I mean, my surname is spelt with a double S, which is unusual for my surname, which is
really,
suggests that it's Nordic. So there's Nordic
I'm
blood.
Nordic.
Yeah, so you never know. I mean, who
You never
knows?
know.
And then on my mum's side, it's just all pretty much inbred Norfolk. That is kind of what it is. I mean, like really mental stuff. Like we never knew if my nan's dad was the person that I called my great granddad, or whether it was his dad. It was never really established which one of them fathered my nan, which is kind of weird.
That's
But that's
interesting.
Norfolk for you, mate. That's Norfolk.
And also, it was famous. Norfolk is very famous for the saying "pissed as a newt," because
Isn't it?
apparently,
Is that
yeah, during World War II, they had a lot of American Air Force
we
bases.
did have a lot of American Air Force
Yeah,
bases, mate.
and a lot of pregnant ladies when they left.
They did have a lot of pregnant ladies when they left.
Yes,
A
yes,
lot
very
of
famous for that.
yeah,
For
well, a lot
single
of them.
pregnant ladies, Norfolk, but also the Americans used to say "pissed as an Inuit," which is an Indian tribe. Norfolk people said, "Oh, well, pissed as an Inuit." They didn't know what an Inuit was, so they
No,
thought it was
they
newt,
wouldn't.
and it
Yeah,
stuck. So it
right.
said "pissed as a newt," but it's actually "pissed as an Inuit."
We
So,
do have our own dialect, mate. I mean,
hmm.
there's like in Norfolk. I mean, like a snail in Norfolk is a dodman. Um, uh, that's what a snail's called in
A
Norfolk.
Dodman.
A dodman. A wasp is a jasper, and a ladybird is a bishy. So you know,
Yeah.
yeah, mate. There's books you can get. You go to any Tesco's in Norfolk, and there'll be on the bookshelves there'll be like a Norfolk dialect, almost like a translation book.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate. There's a lot of local. Like if I said to you Blaring, what would you? I mean,
I wouldn't have
Blaring.
the foggiest what it means.
Blaring and this is very much West Norfolk kind of sort of like
Hmm.
thing, but blaring is crying. It's just like when you're a kid, your parents would say to you all the time,
Blaring.
"What you blaring for?" Yeah,
What
blaring
about a
means crying.
donkey? I worked
What
with
a,
a bloke from Norfolk, and he said, "Well, I had a donkey." What the bleeding knows he talking about? And it was a loaf of bread where they take the inside out and put all the filling in. They call it a
right?
donkey.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. I mean, that wasn't
Yeah.
something that I was ever subjected to in my childhood, but
No.
I've heard it. There's all kinds of weirdness in Norfolk, mate. It's part of the charm for me. I mean, I've lived here my whole life. I've no intention of ever living anywhere else. In fact, the only way I'll be leaving this house, mate, is in a freaking box. There's no way I'd ever go through the trauma of selling and buying a house again after last time. So
Oh, I
that's
know.
it.
It's
I'm
horrendous.
firmly rooted here. Um,
Well, I had plans of actually keeping my house, but in the winter, because I can't stand winters in this country, living in a van and going down to Portugal. But
that,
I
yeah,
scuppered that now.
mate. Well, that's the only the thing me and my missus have said is that if ever anything happened and we lost the
Mm,
house for any reason, I mean, we've got a lot of equity in the house, but we don't own it, obviously,
yeah.
yet as such. But there's money in it that's ours. If anything bad happened, we would then put that equity into getting a large kind of van or an old
Mm.
lorry or something similar, mate. And that's what we'd do. We would then just live on the road.
And you've got
Um,
to do it stealthily. There's a stealth campervan man on the internet, and where he used to live, because he used to live in a van full time. Funnily enough, round Norfolk and Suffolk, and
right.
he was from where I live, and
Yeah.
he said park in an industrial area.
Yes.
Because
I've
you'll blend in, because he didn't have
completely.
windows in the side of his van,
No,
and
no, no. That's what you want in it.
that's the secret. You got to look like
Something
Henri Van.
inconspicuous, mate. It's
Yeah,
like
just
anything, isn't
blend
it, in
in.
this world? Being the grey man. That's what I
Yeah,
try and do. You know, I don't go out of my way to try and be different when I'm out or anything like that. I don't want attention. I don't in any
same
shape
here.
or form.
Yeah,
It's about being just. I've always just just try and be the grey man. Just try
well,
and blend in and not
that's
to
it.
the point where you conform. Obviously, during the nonsense, me refusing to wear the shame muzzle, and I really did, mate. I never wore one.
Same here. I never wore one.
And but I worked in social care for nearly 2 years of it, Eric, and I still managed to not wear one. You know,
Brilliant.
yeah, no, like I nearly said a rude word there, mate, but yeah, Sodom,
Yeah.
like absolutely not. No, I'm not going to
Mm.
be compromised on this. Um, um, there's a difference to me between um, yeah, be the grey man, but at the same time, don't subject yourself to
My
tyranny.
philosophy to a T.
Don't just roll over and
Yeah.
accept what you know to be wrong. Fight for what you know is right. And mate, I worked I'd been in a job for 5 years, doing very well, running a service before all the nonsense started. Within a month of the nonsense started, I've been demoted and moved somewhere else. So I left that company. I ended up working for 3 or 4 different care companies in the space of 18 months, mate, just because I wouldn't tolerate the nonsense. And I
Yeah.
was like, well,
Good
no,
for
I'm
you.
not doing that. And no, I
Yeah.
certainly won't be taking them to an appointment for them to get that injection. No, I won't be doing that.
No.
You know,
No.
and I was working in a home the day that they came in and administered the medicine to
Mm.
both the residents and the staff. And there was one resident who didn't want his medicine administered. And the
Mm.
things that I saw that day, mate, disgusted me. The way that they were trying to coerce a man who'd made, although he may have had learning disabilities, he'd still made what he believed to be an informed decision. He'd chosen, his family were very
Mm.
anti-medicine and didn't
Mm.
want him to have it. He didn't want to have it. And the things that went on that day, mate. And I'll tell you something else as well, Eric. I felt physically sick for months after that day. And I've heard about this shedding and things like that. And I don't know
Yes.
whether that was something that happened, but I I never went back to work there, mate, after that day. I had months off
Good
sick.
for you. But
And
you
then
think, yeah.
I ended up working in an old folks home for 6 weeks, and I just couldn't cope with that. That was outrageous, mate. That was the things again.
Oh,
Free staff to get 21 people up, washed and dressed in the morning. How the hell are you supposed to do that with dignity? Um, and
oh, it's horrendous.
yeah,
And tell you what gets me, it's conveyor belt. People are
it
treated
was exactly that. It was
inhuman.
a factory.
Yeah,
It
a
was a
factory.
factory
Yeah.
environment, mate. It was. I mean, there was a yeah. There, to me, that's there's a safeguarding issue there. If you've only got 3 people looking after 21, half a dozen of which had dementia and would be wandering around, and there was one guy, he'd spent his whole life in that home trying to figure out the key code for the door to get out the front. That was what he
Oh,
did every day, just sat there pressing numbers and pressing enter, trying to figure out the
oh, that's
to
sad.
get out. Mate, it broke my heart.
Must have.
And then the pressure started for me to have the medicine,
Mm.
which I again no
Mm.
effing way, mate. No way at all.
I agree with you.
So
Yeah.
that was when I jacked and sat there one night with my missus and just thought, what are we gonna do? And she had a friend whose gardener had just binned her off, and they were looking for somebody to do the garden, mow the lawn, and do a bit of weed. And so I said, well, look, tell her I'll do it. You know, tell her I'll come and do it 15 quid an hour. She was paying this other woman 18, so I thought, you know, she'd go for it. Anyway, my wife went to this woman, told her I'd do it for 12, not thinking that I was worth 15. So I
Mm.
started doing this garden, and within a couple of weeks, we'd put an ad on Facebook, mate, and within a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
I was a full-time gardener, and I've
Brilliant.
never looked back, mate.
I've always liked to work for myself.
Yeah,
I was freelance. You know, I
it's
love being
special,
free.
isn't it,
Trouble
mate?
is, what I was in, you could be freelance, but you wasn't totally on your own because you still had to work for somebody else in many ways. But going back to that time when you had to wear sanitary towels over your mouth and things like
Yeah,
that, what got me is, you know, I was the only one in the supermarkets
yeah,
that
yeah.
was not wearing one. And
Same
often
here.
I got security come up to me and said, "Excuse me, have you got a mask?" And I used to sort of have something lined up, humorous, to ask them. And I'd ask them a question, they'd say, "Have you got a mask, sir?" I'd say, "What? Have you farted?" You know, or
Yeah, you mate, you humour's always good.
and
Um,
and I mean, the one that gets me though is that they had I was in Barclays Bank once, and this tart came over. I'll call it a perfume fart on legs. Came
yeah,
walking over to me with what I thought was a box of tissues. "Who's your mask, sir?" I said, "No, I don't want to wear one. No,
yeah.
thank you. I don't wear it. No,
No, thank
no,
you.
thank you.
Yeah,
I'm exempt."
yeah,
Oh, then she started to go into the ins and outs, and I just got this printed thing out, which said you're going to get a £9,000 fine because it's
exactly.
discrimination
I
act.
had that on my phone, mate. I had that
Yeah,
page on my phone
and she just walked
saved.
straight off.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
knew.
It was on the government website, wasn't it? It
Yeah,
was from the
yeah,
government website. It was genius, mate. I had that literally on my phone there, ready
yeah.
for anybody who like you, anybody start. It was, look, I'm exempt, and any further questions, mate. I'd just start showing them that, and I start reading from it, and I go, look, this is what's on the government website. I've just told you I'm exempt. Leave me alone. Like,
But
end of
was it
conversation.
empowering though? Because I
Oh
found
God,
walks
yeah,
around thinking
definitely.
I was a bit like Cock of the North. You know, "Whee!" I was thinking, "Whee!"
Yeah.
And you get people giving you filthy looks, and I sort of, it's giving me a bit of an ego trick,
Smile
really. I
back
sort
at
of walking
me.
around thinking,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
you know,
just smiled at everybody that gave me a dirty look. I
yeah,
smiled at them, said hello to some of them. Do you know what though? Just going back to that time,
yeah.
Eric. This is the one of the most distressing things I saw. I was in the local one of the local Tesco's in town, and I hadn't even realised there were arrows on the floor. They got a one way up with sideways way,
That's it. That
and
reminds me.
I hadn't even seen them, mate. I don't look at the floor when I go to the supermarket. I'm normally
Hmm,
looking at the shelves to see what I can get.
hmm.
So I hadn't seen these arrows. So I'm going up the aisles the wrong way. I had a couple of people point it out to me. So like, I think one guy said, "You go in the wrong way," and I said, "Well, I'm not, because I want the bread, and it's just up here on the left." And another bloke said it's one way, and I said, "Well, I'm only going one way." But anyway, as I come around the corner of one of the aisles, there's a guy on one of these these mobility scooters,
Yeah.
and you can see this guy's in some form of distress as soon as you look at his face. And I stopped and I said, "Are you all right there, mate?" And he said, "No, mate." He said, "I can't get my scooter to move." So I had a look, and he got one of, like the cardboard inserts that they stack the
Yeah.
tins on. He got one of them caught in his wheel of his thing. So gave it a hoik, and I pulled it out, and I said, "Give it a go now, mate." And he pressed his little thing and went forward a bit. And he looked at me and he said, he just started crying. And he said, "Thanks, mate." He said, "I've been sat here for nearly 15 minutes. He said, "Everybody's just given me a wide berth." He says, "Even when I've asked people for help," he said, "they have just ignored me and walked past." And mate, I was in bits. I was like, what have we become?
Precisely.
Where's,
Precisely.
people have
No
swallowed
humility.
all this nonsense,
And
and they've
it
just,
was nonsense. I could see straight through it. That's what
same here,
got.
mate. I called it on day one. I
Yeah.
said to my wife when they were showing videos of Chinese people falling down in the street, and I was like, no,
Bullshit.
absolutely
Yeah.
not. Yeah, and that's because I've been like paying attention for the last 10 years.
Mm.
I think, I don't know, you're probably aware of James Corbett Report.
Yeah, we Cobbett
I think
report. Yeah. Brilliant.
James
Yeah.
has done some fantastic
Mm.
journalism, some really, really good documentary work, because of people like himself. And I've got to give a mention to David Icke, because I think
Mm.
David was well ahead of the game. I don't agree with everything David says, but that
Same here. I don't.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean that I can't. What I do believe is that David believes everything that he says. I believe that,
Mm. And I think he's used by the authorities to be a court jester when he didn't realise it. I think he
Oh,
was used.
David, yeah. I mean, I think the things. I mean, I'm a great admirer of his sons, Gareth and Jamie,
Mm.
and I do try and catch as often as I can. Gareth does a podcast on Iconic with Richard Willett called What Af, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a comical take, and I'll watch that now and again because it's one of the free things they chuck out on the Iconic platform. But I think Gareth, to have grown up the way he did, where he must have been ridiculed as a kid
Mm.
because of who his dad was.
Mm.
But I think he's come through that, and he's an incredibly strong
It's
personality.
made him stronger, hasn't it? Really.
Yeah, I've got
I
a
don't
lot
look
of
at it as a
admiration.
setback because
Sorry,
things that happen in your childhood, it
they
can
mould you, don't they, Eric?
it does mould you.
Oh,
You've got
mate,
a
I had
similar
a tough
philosophy,
childhood.
to
Yeah,
yourself. But
I had a tough childhood, mate, and it
yeah,
made me what I am now. So, it wasn't the disaster it could have been.
I know what you mean. I mean, it was far from happy. I think, but again, I think, as I said, it's an extra qualification in the University of Life.
Definitely, it's set me up, mate, and it's all took me where
Hmm.
I am now, and
Well, a
I'm
bloke,
happy.
I saw this bloke the book once. How to stop worrying? Was it how to give up worrying and get on with your life?
I think my
And
wife has got that book, mate.
really, because I
Yeah,
was I think it's in Smith's. I was looking through it, and it was a bloke who had been debt charged for 48 hours during World War II,
yeah,
and he went white. Some blokes went delirious,
yeah,
and he became a psychiatrist. He said when fellas with shell shock said, "You don't know what I've been through," he'd look them in the eye and say, "I do,"
yeah.
because he'd actually been there. And I
Lived
think once you've
experience.
been
Yeah,
there, seen it, got the T-shirt, you realise it makes you a different person.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Trauma does a lot, I think, to people in it. Like I say, it'll send you one or two ways.
now we go back to chat. We've got here skins. I think we're talking about potato skins.
Yeah.
Do grow if seeded already.
Well, there you go.
See,
I'm
so
not going
there
to
we are.
argue because, like I say, I've never tried it, but I'm definitely going to give it a go.
Now we've got that's Louise, and Louise says slugs love beer, bitter, owl, bury a glass near your veg. Is anyone trouble though? They keep you awake all night
when
singing,
they're up
singing.
partying.
That's right, and it's very cruel because they sometimes get out 3 times to go to the loo before they actually get back and stuff it. So they're always getting out slashing.
That's not a bad idea. That's worth a go. I mean, like, because they're going to just go into the glass, fall to the bottom, and drink themselves to death, aren't they? So yeah,
that's right.
I'm not.
It's a nice way to go, isn't it?
Yeah. Not
then we got here.
This is I'm up for anything.
Louise again. Can you grow spuds in bags?
No, you can. She says you can grow spuds in bags, and she's right. You can grow all kinds of veg in bags.
Oh, sorry, you can grow spuds in bags.
Yeah, mate. You can. Those bag for
life difficult things, age.
Yeah, like those bag for lives from Tesco's, mate. You could fill a Tesco carrier bag up with earth and grow spuds. You could grow all sorts in there. You could grow you could literally grow in, as long as you put some holes in the bottom for drainage, because the last thing you want is a wet bag, a bag that's just going to fill up with water when it rains. So you need to poke some holes in the bottom, and I'd probably have them sort of on a brick, but you can use any kind of receptacle. You can grow in, Eric.
Brilliant. Now we've got here baby with a laser. That sounds interesting.
That is interesting.
Jerusalem artichokes, if you're pushed for space and are not much of a gardener. Once they're in, you can harvest them every year as long as you leave a couple in. You're trying to take over the bleeding garden, don't they? I think Jerusalem artichokes. I like them though.
Mate, I've never grown them, but again, it's a great tip.
Yeah, I've grown them. They've actually died this year. I haven't seen them growing. I think it's probably the drought that's done it. It's a bit dry here. But,
I think as well, mate, a lot of things, because we had a dry summer last year and then we had a harsh winter. A lot of things of the combination of the two has definitely affected certainly a lot of the ornamental flowers that I attend to in people's gardens.
Yeah.
Certain varieties, hydrangeas, for example, mate, they've really struggled. They struggled last summer and they struggled.
Fuchsias as well.
Fuchsias as well, mate.
Had a disease last year.
Did they? I didn't know that.
Yes, all the leaves were curling up. They survived it, but normally this time of the year they'd be taller than I am. I'm about 5'7", but this year they're not that high, But Louise has come back, and we have 4 generations of muntjac that visit our garden. I have never managed to eat any. I have never eaten any cow. They never eat my potatoes. We see them in daylight in front and back garden. They're all around my house as well.
I feel for Louise. Yeah, they'll love the kale. Definitely, they'll definitely chew on that. Yeah. No, you're not gonna. Unless you're growing it in a cage, Louise, you're not gonna have any kale, I'm afraid.
Yes.
Yeah. But they'll eat the ornamental flowers as well, mate. They'll chew geraniums, anything, mate. I mean, I planted a load of sunflowers with a guy a couple of weeks ago. Went back the next week and they'd eaten. They were like, I don't know, 2-3 inches tall when we put them in. They'd just chewed them all down to the bottom of the stems.
Sods.
They are. They're a menace. Yeah. Eric, I'm going to need a short toilet break if that's okay.
Certainly, go for a slash. And what I'll do, I'll put an advert on.
Sounds like a plan, mate. If that's okay with you, I'll be back.
Okay. Right. So, what other show would you have a slash break? We just see you don't.
I don't think there would.
Go and wet your boots.
I think what I'd have to do is have some kind of discreet glass down beneath, and I'd just have to do it while we were live. But you did say if there was a need, so.
Yes. I'll shove an advert on now. What shall we have now? We'll have a blast from the past, shall we? If I can find the bloody thing. And we'll be back after.
Literally, I'll need 2 minutes, mate. That is it.
Right. So we go straight into an advert break. Here we go.
Okay.
Are you into piercings and look like a greasy chip shop with your tattoos? Then you need Stalpiss Aftershave. Do you want to dress like a Peruvian ponce? Well, come along to Fockham Hall Fashions and you can look like some spiv from the 1970s. Yes, with these glossy shoes and... Oh, I think he's going to ride. Yes, I've now got my Fockham Hall rainmac on. Thanks. I think he's using that stout piece of aftershave, isn't he? Poor bloody hell. Well, you come along to the IQ Pride movement, where you can meet similar dimwits that believe everything that the government says, and then you can pride yourself in doing everything the government tells you to do.
Mummy, why is your brain so soft? Well, dear, I watch mainstream television that fills my brain up with crap. Soaps such as Recton Enders and Boring Nation Street. I also watch Mr. Attenborough and also Dr. Brian's cock, who tells me meaningless drivel that I automatically believe without question. Those brains that watch mainstream are as soft as your thoughts with mainstream propaganda.
Are you suffering from constipation? If so, come along to the Fockham Hall Tandoori. I think I've got the shits already. Excuse me, sir, would you like the chef surprise? What's the chef surprise then? Well, he accidentally emptied the contents of his hemorrhoid cream into the curry. Yes, come along to Fockham Hall Tandoori and remember to put your toilet rolls in the freezer beforehand.
Back in the room. How about
So
that?
there we are. So you missed those fantastic adverts there.
I
So
literally got back just as they finished, mate. That was what you call almost perfect timing.
Perfect timing there. And also, I was going to put one on for the. This is the Fockham Hall Times.
Right.
Fockham Hall Times. I'm hoping to do a new edition soon. And here we are trying to help the low IQ Pride movement and thanking the government. The government is actually thanking us for not thinking and things like that. So you'll see that on my website, Fockham Hall Times, which is all the W's, FockhamHallRadio.com. So giving it a good plug. And have you got a website, Chris?
No, mate. I've done nothing like I say. This is the first time I've done anything like this. Really, to be fair, Eric. It's something I thought about. Like or maybe some kind of YouTube channel regarding just gardening and keeping it non-political, just talking about gardening.
Yes.
At the moment, mate, it's just a question of it's time. This time of year it goes crazy for me, mate. Like
I know.
7 in the morning till 8 at night some days, and you've got to make hay while the sun shines because the winter will be crap, mate. That's the thing. Like this January and February, I probably made it out like a dozen days in the 2 months that I actually could go out and work. I did a bit of snow clearance and things like that for people, but realistically you need to make the money in the summer, and the only way you'll do that is by putting in sort of 10-12 hour days.
Well, thanks for coming on.
No, not at all, mate. It's a pleasure.
And
like I said to you, I always make sure one day a week I finish at a reasonable time, so I get my wife at least gets an evening, and I try and not work weekends, but unfortunately that kind of tends to go out the window a little bit, and I quite often end up working Saturdays. If
you enjoy it, because
I do,
you see,
mate,
I'm now the local DIY man, so
Yeah.
I will put my almost anything.
Yeah.
Sort of mending locks right away through anything really.
I'm trying to persuade a friend of mine, Eric, to do that. He's currently a HGV driver through an agency, and I've been trying to persuade him because he's a very practical man, and I've been trying to tell him, this is the way forward, mate. You do really well,
I love repairing things. I always have loved repairing things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like push bike. I won't buy a brand new one. I'll get an old wreck and do it up. And I've got 6 bikes and all old wrecks that I've done up to even worse than old wrecks.
Mate, you've had a go. Isn't there a satisfaction out of making good something that wasn't good before? It doesn't matter what it is, mate, whether it's a bike, whether it's a garden. I mean, my greatest satisfaction at work is the gardens that there's one I'm doing at the moment. They lived there 6 years, and all they did in 6 years was mow the lawn. They didn't do any gardening of any description. So they had laurel bushes that were like growing 6 foot into the lawn and stuff like that. The flower beds had long been covered up, and we've been there 5 or 6 times now. But this particular lady, after the first visit, she come out and burst into tears. And it's lovely, mate, to be able to have that effect on and to be able to.
That is nice. That is nice.
You know, and she says to me now how much more time she spends in the garden, which is beautiful. So it's nice to do things like that.
It's nice. I mean, I still keep my hand in architecture, yes, but that is work that goes up and down all the time. And sometimes you get a lot of work coming along, and sometimes you don't. So I can sort of please myself. But we've got some now an interesting one here from Ancient Ruby. Every year something, assuming a rat, eats my strawberries. Any advice, please? Well, I think they like it with ice creams, Ancient Ruby. I'm not sure. I haven't asked them.
Or custard, maybe. Yeah. Look,
custard,
what you're looking for, if you think it is a rat, I mean, it would depend. If your strawberries are in the ground, then it's going to be difficult to protect from a rat, because you can put a cage on the top of them, but a rat will dig through and come out underneath it. But I've got my strawberries in like one of these planter things with the multiple kind of holes in the side, so that, you know, it would be easy for me to put some kind of cage or to construct some kind of wire structure to go over the top of it. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Rats are they're devils, mate. The trouble is they can dig holes, and like I say, the best thing is if you've got them in a container, put them on a solid base. Even if you just buy some chicken wire and shape it, you know, you can sort of fix it to the ground, and that'll keep your rats off them. But predators, unfortunately, are part of the game. They're like, you have good years and bad years. I mean, we had a plum tree until a couple of years ago when I dug it out, and one year the squirrels just had all the plums. Like, we got nothing, not one plum. It happens, you know.
Well, the thing is that there is a main predator. Where is it now? I took a picture of it, and it's one of the worst predators you could ever wish to think of. And I've got it here somewhere. Where is it? No, it must be here somewhere. Oh, yes, here it is. This is one of the worst predators you could wish to get. How you get this out, I just do not know.
There's not much you can do about that one, mate. No. The best thing to do is just to disengage from mainstream media, and that one tends to sort of go away. That's kind of how I think. I mean, look at that sneering little git. He really is, isn't he? He's. Did you see the interview where he was talking about? He was sat next to his wife at the time, and he was talking about the next pandemic and how that would get people's attention. Did you see?
That's it. Yes, that's sort of.
Do you know about duping delight, Eric? Have you heard that term, duping delight?
I've heard that. I heard it.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, if you look at, and I don't want to say anything libelous, but if you look at the parents of a very famous missing child from the UK, they quite often suffer from that particular condition, that they will say something very tragic and then smile at the end of it. And
you've got a good one, because I'm very suspicious of people that smile after a sentence. Or hello.
Yeah.
And I do this.
Duping delight, mate. That's there's definitely something in that.
I think, I don't like this, because they're always false.
Yeah.
It's sort of, I'm very sincere.
Yeah, Bill's never come across well on camera, has he though, mate? I don't think you can chuck all the money at somebody and get image consultants in and all that. But if someone's an arsehole, they're going to come across as an arsehole. And I think Bill comes from a long lineage of arseholes, so
that's right.
Yeah,
it runs in the family, you know.
It does, mate. Yeah.
It's funny that. Yeah, this says use copper wire. That's to stop the slugs.
I've heard of copper wire. Yeah.
You electrify it. What you do, you put a 9-volt battery, waterproof it, put 2 wires round, and it doesn't kill them. They just sort of
stuns them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just stuns them.
It'd probably be better for my karma, wouldn't it, than tipping salt on top of them.
Yes. Yeah. But because they always complain, I want your vinegar with it. Oh, hang on, it's gone dark again. It does this everybody. Here it comes back again. Hey.
Cool.
Right. Did you like my hedge joke, Urban Fox? Yes, very nice. Yes. It amused me anyway.
Mr. Fox, I love everything you write. I do actually like read, because obviously on Richie's show there's a comment section, and I always read Fox's comments. I'm not sure if I should reveal his real name, which we are aware of, but we'll call him Mr. Fox.
Okay.
But I do like Mr. Fox. He's a good man.
That's Ancient Ruby says, sorry to hear about Deb's dad. Sending her love, bless her. Yes,
That's all any of us can do really at the moment, isn't it?
That's right.
It's like you said about send that positive energy over, and yeah, it's a tricky time for anyone, isn't it? It's never.
It is. Well, it's surreal because it's not quite. Reality steps on its head, and of course, with parents, you rely on their wiseness because they've been on this earth longer than you. And there's always little things you ask them. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And when they're not there, it's sort of.
I'm struggling with the concept of the day that I can't. I mean, I ring my mum every day. I mean, I get a text from my mum every morning, but normally before I've even got up, there's a text, and we speak on the phone 6 days out of 7 every week. And yeah, she's my go-to. You know, if I'm having
my dad was like that,
yeah. Give mum a ring. Mum will find something to make me feel better about the day. You know, she's very good at putting a positive spin, and I do. My heart goes out to Debs. You know, it really does. It's anybody in that position, like you say.
It's awful. I know what she's going through because you can't sleep. You're on edge all the time. You're, as I say, it's an emotional roller coaster. That's really what it is.
I mean, with my
I think the last parent, because this is the last parent, is the worst.
It's brutal, isn't it? It's
like when one goes, you still got the other one. But then when the other one goes, and again, it's true what my neighbour said. Welcome to the Orphans Club.
Yeah.
You know, because you're an orphan then. Now, this is an interesting one. Radishes Get Fucked says, Johnny Spate till death window box. Yes, I remember that one with Alf Garnett. Yes.
Right.
Do you want a cup of tea, Mr. Garnett?
No, I'm not aware, mate. I've like I say, I've not watched.
Till Death Us Do Part. That was an old film. That was an old comedy show.
Yeah, I'm aware of it, but even as a kid, mate, I didn't watch a lot of telly. I was one of them kids that was much more happy being outside, and I wasn't into watching a lot.
Right, Mark Anthony said, and how's Cleopatra, by the way? Is it true that you can grow microgreens indoors?
Right, what would he mean by microgreens, Eric? What would we be talking about? I mean, you've got you can buy metal halide lamps, and you can grow anything indoors with them. You know, you can get like people like there's certain plants that people like to cultivate with those lights, and there's certain shops where you can buy them. They sell a lot of them in Holland, I believe. But you know, you can grow indoors with, if you've got the right lighting, or if you've got a big window, then I think you can grow a lot more things indoors probably than what people think. Well, if you're prepared to have a bit of mess indoors, then why not?
Well,
but I'm not sure what microgreens are.
Well, that's it. Well, nor am I. I can't have heard of them. But Yorkshire Rose is actually in Canada. And she says, where I live in a flat with a balcony, and here lots of people have special planters and grow lots of things just in that small space.
It's thinking outside the box, and any space that's outdoors can be used to grow if that's what you want to do. And I still maintain that you can grow. No, I still maintain that you can grow things on windowsills because I'm doing it myself. So.
Oh, you can grow them anywhere. But by the way, Yorkshire Rose, how's your gracious leader, who is I think slightly left of Chairman Mao, as John said last week? Was it Trudeau? You know.
Oh, shocking man!
Awful
don't you mean Castro?
Yes.
I mean, there's some suspicious links there, isn't there, with his?
That's right. Yes.
And
his mummy who forgets to put underwear on. Have you seen that?
She was a quite low moral character, wasn't she? I think.
That's right. Yes. She likes to express her views.
Yeah, she likes to express a lot of things, mate. But it's quite interesting if you look at pictures of Castro when he's the age that Trudeau is now, and take the beard away. There's something in that, mate. Maybe.
Yes, yes. I think there is. I think
Mm,
there is because you just
yeah.
carry on what his daddy did in
Well,
Cuba.
yeah. I mean, Pierre was obviously he was prime minister before him, wasn't
Mm.
he? And I think he was another sort of globalist and very much down with the agenda. And I mean, I can't believe what I've seen in Canada, mate, in the last 3 years, especially with the convoy and the
Mm.
draconian measures that were taken
Mm.
to prevent people from exercising. Sort of, like I said, I'm not somebody who believes that protest makes really much difference, but I do
I
think
don't
that
think
they
it
did
does.
scare the shit out of the Canadian government, those truckers. I really think that that is a case where they definitely they were worried.
Oh, they were. What happened in churches? Now, I'm not religious, but there's a church service going on, and the police stormed in and ordered
There was
everybody out and arrested the priest.
Yeah, did you see
I
that
mean,
the Polish guy,
yeah,
wasn't it? Was that in Canada as well?
I think it's in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant.
Mm.
I saw the video of him throwing them out of the church, and top man, I thought, but they went for him, didn't they? They really
Mm.
went for him after that. That video went viral, and again,
Yes.
that was something that I don't believe that they particularly wanted people to see. Eric, I'm just going to pop the light on because it's starting to get dark now. So
It'll be dark, isn't it?
I'm fading into the background.
Once
Let
you
me
put the
pop.
light on, let there be light. We'll have a look at ancient ruby.
Boom. There we go, mate. That's a little
Now,
bit better.
this is an interesting one. It's dangerous. It says, I use talc, Eric. Do you really? It moves them elsewhere. Used it for years. What's
I
that? The
take it with
slugs?
slugs, I think, is what we're talking about here. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I don't possess any talc. I think I
Oh, I
stopped
think,
using talc when I realised it had asbestos in it.
well, precisely. And also, they're a bit posh, the slugs around my way. I think they prefer Chanel number 5. You know,
Well,
they're
there you
not,
go. That's not
so
really
they
true.
are a bit posh, a bit sort of, they're called
You'll
Felicity.
have to
And
get some hooky Chanel number 5, mate,
yeah,
from some dodgy chap at the market.
that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It says
or some
here,
talc.
yeah. Yeah. So get the old, get the give them the old to talk over. Ancient Ruby says, can you give us a rundown on exactly how you regrow your cabbages, Eric? Well,
Go
all
on,
you
Eric,
do,
enlighten us.
right, all you do, you go into Tesco's or Sainsbury's or other retail firms and you buy these leafy spring cabbages, the ones with the longish ones,
Yeah.
and you cut all the leaves off and eat them. And then you leave the root, you cut the bottom of the root off, stick it in a jam jar of water, rainwater, for about a week in a windowsill, and suddenly you see the leaves growing, and then you stick it in a bucket of soil and keep watering it, and then you get another cabbage come
And
along.
boom, cabbage. There you
And
go.
you don't cut the whole lot. I just take the leaves off,
Yeah.
and I do not cook it. I eat it raw. It's
You.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
You'll never taste cabbage like it. It is the best cabbage. The only one I've had failure with is celery. My celery grows to about 2 inches and sort of goes and gives up.
Mate,
So
strawberries, like I said to you earlier, strawberries
yeah.
are just I'm gonna have another go next year though. I'm not gonna let it put me off. That's that's the nature of the beast with me, is I don't give up on much easily, so
Good
I'll
for
have another
you.
go.
Yeah. But cabbages are the easiest. They really are
That's
easy.
I'm
And
gonna give that a go as well. I mean,
give it a
that's
go.
yeah,
I'll take some pictures possibly for the next time you're on, so I can show
yeah,
people the pictures of the cabbages that I grow. And I had
absolutely.
some today, and it's delicious, and it's free, and you know what's in it. But
And
the
it's
thing is,
yeah, it tastes
the
better than
other
any other cabbage that you'll ever have, mate, because you grew it yourself. Like I said to you,
that's it.
there's a connection there as well. I think in terms of like when you're connecting with nature, you watching plants grow as well. It's so educational, seeing how the leaves form and when they start to become recognizable as the
Yeah.
plant that you recognize them
Oh
as
yeah.
in the growing processes. It's such an education, it really is. And it's it's exciting as well, when you get your
Yeah.
first shoots of the year start to come up, the first things you put in, and
Mm.
then they start to pop up, and transferring things into the garden as well, and seeing them. Not everything makes it.
Mm.
I've lost a few carrots that I've put in. Some of them the dogs have peed on. Some of them have just been ripped out the ground when I've been weeding. I've accidentally grabbed them and pulled them out and things. But you know, you've got to be prepared to take a few losses and a few hits along the way. And just keep cracking on. It's so good for the soul, Eric.
The other one with carrots, though, you grow French marigolds around them to deceive the carrot fly. The carrot, it's a carrot fly, isn't there?
Right.
There's a white moth, and there's a fly that eats into carrots. So I grow French marigolds around it, and it deceives it. It won't go.
Mate, I didn't even know that was a thing, and I've got marigolds growing all in between my carrots. Just because I had a tray of marigolds, and I was like, where am I going to put
That's
these?
what's put them off.
Yeah, I'd already. That's another concept that I would perhaps not today, but if there is another time, mate, and it's appropriate, I'll take you round and I'll show you my garden. But I love veg growing in with flowers, and that's another thing, Eric. If you've got enough space to grow veg and flowers, grow flowers as well, mate, because that is something as well. That's a different kind of growing, and making your garden somewhere that's aesthetically pleasing for you is to me, again, it's all part of it, you know. So I've got carrots, like I say, growing with marigolds. I've got cabbages in with osteopernums that I've grown from seed, and busy lizzies in with peas and things like that. You know, mix and match it. Play about.
It's exciting as well. We've got quite a big garden. It's about 60 foot long by about 18, 19 foot wide. It's a fair size.
Yeah, it is. It's a decent size.
And
mine's about 10 meters long.
Really?
Yeah, it's not big at all, mate. I mean, considering I live in a rural location, it's a very affluent village, and we live in a tiny little cottage with a small little garden, which is all we
sounds nice though.
Mate, it was all about living in this village. It really was.
Is it a flint one though? Because where you are, it's mainly flint, isn't it?
No, it's carstone, mate. The brown stone is what you get.
Oh, I know.
So, the very famous royal estate, which we might as well mention because everyone knows it's in West Norfolk. So Sandringham is, I mean, I could throw a stone from where I live and it would land in the Sandringham estate in certain parts, and a lot of the buildings around here are that Norfolk carstone. So it's like a brown. Stone, but mine isn't, mate. Mine's an old farm worker's cottage, about 120 years old. Sort of like
slate roof.
No, it might have been at one point, but it's probably been buggered with, and now it's tiles, roof tiles.
I'll tell you something. You're better with roof tiles because slates are a bastard.
We had slates in the old house, mate. Yeah, and it was just
they slip off.
Yeah. And all we had was just slates, mate, nailed onto wood. There was no underlay or anything. You go in the loft and you could see the other side of the slates.
That's it. Now, what happened is the Victorians used ungalvanized nails, so the nails would rust away. You'd be sitting in your garden one day, and suddenly a slate would come off. And because every slate is nailed down, they have to put a zinc hook and hook so you get these ugly hooks all over the slate. Right. I detest slate.
Yeah,
so
no,
you've got
a fan of it. We lost quite a few slates in the old house. We haven't had a single roof tile come off since we've moved here. So
that's it. Roof tiles are best.
Shops are good. And it's an old house, mate. It's like I say, it's about 120 years old. It's one of them cottages. If I show you, I don't know if you can see, but if I tilt the camera, I don't know how well you can see, but the roof kind of comes into the. I
know the type.
Can you see? So like
I can see it. Yes.
Yeah, the ceiling comes.
That's Victorian. Yeah,
I think it is.
The Victorian way of doing it. Yeah.
Late Victorian, but they were originally, I think, farm worker cottages, probably for people that worked on the Sandringham estate, mate. So
now though, I think they put corpses up trees, don't they, on the Sandringham estate? That's their.
They do a lot of.
Yeah, that's where we put it,
mate. I'll tell you what, because it was up until about 6-7 years ago, the Queen still owned it. And she signed it over to Charles. I think it would have probably been about 5 years ago. So it was not long after we moved to the village. It was signed over to him. And ever since he's had control of it, it's very much a business as opposed to being, I think, a place where he wants to spend time. Are you aware of Park House?
Yes.
At Sandringham. So that's the house where Princess Diana was I believe she was brought up, specifically groomed for the role that she was to fulfill in the future, of trying to introduce some human blood back into the royal bloodlines. I
Mm.
don't know, but Park House,
She
mate,
was about the best of them.
oh, mate, without a shadow of a doubt, she was a human
Yeah.
being. But
Let's
this
face
house,
it.
no, sorry, go for it. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, Charlie knows exactly how the poor live and how the average man lives. I mean, just think of the hard work he does for the Duchy of Cornwall, which he's
Of
given over
course.
to his son.
Oh,
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't
honestly.
mean to cut in there.
No, not at all. Again, that's
Yeah.
relevant because I've read a lot about that as well, and how if you die in Cornwall and you don't leave a will, he basically gets the money, not the
Correct.
government. And there's
Yeah.
all kinds of little quirky rules. Well, at Sandringham, you've got this building, Park House, which was the house that Princess Diana grew up in. You get a lot of people that come just to see Park House, and they put flowers on the railings. Even now, people still go and do that. Now, for years, you know the Leonard Cheshire charity.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Leonard Cheshire ran Park House as it was the only one of its kind in the UK, but as a hotel for people with profound physical disabilities. This hotel was set up to cater for whatever physical disabilities you had.
Yeah.
You could go there and have a holiday. And it closed. My wife worked there up until about 2 months before it closed, when they all got made redundant. But they closed it down about 3-4 years ago now. Leonard Cheshire just basically pulled away from it, and they closed the hotel down. That building, Eric, has been left to rot. It is falling apart, and it's a beautiful building. I proposed to my wife in the gardens. The gardens there were incredible.
Well, nice.
And I arranged with a boss to let her to go off work an hour early one day. My wife didn't have a clue, and I just literally turned up to pick her up, and she was like, "You're early, why?" And I said, "I just want to show you something outside." She's like, "What are you doing, you weirdo?" I was like, "Just come and look at this, come and look at this." And I literally just walked her into the gardens. Well, this is a nice spot, isn't it? And she went, "For what?" And I just dropped down onto one knee, mate, and popped the question. So,
Oh, isn't that
but
lovely?
but you
Oh,
see,
that's super, isn't it?
yeah, well, it's on our doorstep, mate. And like I say, she worked there at the time. She worked at the hotel. But that building, I believe, that is now being left to go to rack and ruin, because for him, that is, like I say, there's people that literally go there as a pilgrimage to go and leave flowers for Diana. Even now, that still happens.
Good heavens.
And I think, again, that's part of his plan for Sandringham, is to literally eradicate Park House, and to sort of take that connection away. And he's done all sorts of other stuff, mate. He's
Always a nasty piece of work.
well, you know, it's famous for rhododendrons, Sandringham. It was the Queen's favourite. Well, it was the Queen's favourite flower, apparently. She loved the old Lizzie the lizard. She loved the rhododendrons.
Yeah.
So they were everywhere, and he's systematically ripping all them up as well, and just basically, yeah, like I say, the whole place has now turned into a business. They do a lot of pop concerts there now. So I think Robbie Williams is there bank holiday weekend in August. They've just had Billy Ocean. Just had Billy Ocean there.
I suppose you can hear it from where you live.
You can hear it, mate, and we don't.
My sister lives near Nebworth. She gets that.
Yeah, we don't ever get even offered like, they never tell you when anything's on, or you don't get anything from the estate. One of the best things, mate, about 2 months after we moved here, was Prince Philip come tearing through the village he had a carriage with 4 horses, just come flying through the village one day on this carriage with 4 horses. Yeah, it's a bit mad sometimes, you know, being that close to things like that. You kind of,
I know, because he was the only person, I mentioned this the other week, that could actually state the obvious, ask the question, and answer it all in one sentence. So you come along and say, "So you're Chris the gardener, are you?" Yeah. I see. So he's asked the question, stated the obvious, asked the question and answers it.
Yeah. I mean,
it puts you down. But apparently, Charlie Boy,
did he?
No. There was supposed to be a scandal many years ago that was going to be leaked about him, and it was all snubbed out. And I often wonder what that scandal was.
Was that Philip?
Yeah.
Well, my understanding,
it's still gone quiet.
Yeah, well, my understanding was he had a relationship with Margaret, didn't he, at one point?
Did he?
Well, I mean, I wasn't there, but that's I've read people that have put that out there, that was something that was going on. The craziest thing about Philip, Eric, is, do you remember when he had that car accident? When he pulled out
Yes.
at San
That's
Remo?
it. That was up near you, wasn't it? Up there?
Mate, that was down the road from me. Like I drove past about half an hour after it happened, mate, when the Range Rover was still there on its side and everything. But here's the crazy thing. So for about 4 weeks after the accident, all the glass from the window, the Range Rover had been removed, but all the glass from the window was still on the floor around where the accident was.
Ooh.
Now, some person, some local, swept that glass up, mate, and sold that on eBay for thousands.
Bloody hell.
Seriously, mate. And I was kicking
And
myself.
who'd buy it?
I was like, mate, who buys half the shit that gets sold on eBay? You know, look at the things that people buy. But people will pay. There are people out there that will pay silly money just to be able to have some, I don't know. Like my claim to fame is I've got the glass from Prince Philip's Range Rover when he was T-boned.
Well, do you know what they used to sell in London? When I worked in London, they used to have tins selling London fog.
Yeah,
and it's for Americans to buy London fog. That is the biggest. I mean, does someone go around going, "Oh, there's some fog"? You know? No.
I've seen that in holiday resorts where they've sold like a Brighton Air and things like that. I've seen. Well, yeah, you've got to be pretty stupid, haven't you? Fortunately for the people that manufacture these things, there seems to be quite a few stupid people out there, mate. So
there is. But going back to the chat again, what we've got here is Mish says comfrey knitbone makes natural fertilizer.
I'm assuming we're talking about the plant comfrey here, are we? The sort of borage leaf type plant that flowers in sort of March, April time. Comfrey is brilliant, mate. If you've got gaps you want to fill, comfrey is one of them plants where you stick it in and it'll spread and it'll give you a lovely coverage and good flowers. So I'm assuming that's what Mish, I think that's who it is saying. Comfrey. It's a pretty little flower, mate, comfrey, and it is something that it'll grow in abundance. If you introduce it in your garden, it'll find spaces and it'll spread.
I like sedums and house
sedum. I love sedum, mate.
I love them because
you
don't have to worry about watering
as well. That's the beautiful thing. I love anything that flowers late summer because everything else is normally finishing, and then the sedum just comes in with the beautiful little red pink.
That's it.
Yeah, I've got some sedum in my garden, mate, that I dug out from obviously asked them first, but one of my customers, because it spreads as well. Sedum it'll multiply, and you can obviously dig it out.
Bloody tough and all.
Oh god,
they're real tough little sods. They are. They don't look it, but they are.
No. Well, they look really fragile, don't they? They look like begonias. You know, begonias are one of them plants where you just touch them and they fall in half. Having said that, this year for some reason I've gone with loads of begonias. We've got it's still light enough. Mate, do you want to see the garden? Do you want to wander out and have a little look? Or
we could do, but shall we go? Shall we have a little? There's a few in chat beforehand.
Yeah, sure.
So we got here. I chuck the wee bastards. Birds Slugs. Find them.
Yeah.
Slugs.
Yeah.
I assume he wasn't talking about politicians, but anyway.
Yeah, the trouble with that is you. I mean, I've got a neighbour I don't particularly like, so I mean, I have had the wicked thought of just slinging them all into her garden, but again, that's not good karma. So I try not to do that. They're going to land somewhere, and they're going to then be a problem for someone else, aren't they? That's the problem.
Well, with slugs, I like to live and let live, and my feeling is, you're saying to me, I like good karma, and I don't. You can put this stuff down which kills them. I don't like doing that. My attitude is just.
No, mate, I don't even like salting them. I don't like doing it. It's brutal.
I just keep. My feeling is there is an imbalance, and if there was a natural predator there, it keep the balance down. But I actually saw 2 snails this morning. They obviously loved each other. They're really, they're really sort of, shall we say, embracing in a way. And I thought, it's a bit like I didn't tread on them accidentally, But we could have a look in the garden, but I don't know whether it upset the internet connection.
Well, I think if, as long as I don't go too far from the house, mate, because the shed is at the back end of the garden. That's where I was when it went trip before. I think as long as we stay house end, then you can at least get a flavour, and I can show you some of the, like I say, some of the receptacles that you can use. And
yes, that'd be brilliant. Why not? Yeah,
and the fact that I'm not full of crap, mate, and that I can really grow in these things, and I'll show you.
You're not full of crap. I didn't say
no,
you're full of crap.
You never know, mate. You know,
my garden's full of crap.
Mate, until about sort of 3 months ago. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this on me. My garden was quite literally, it was just a mess because I neglected it for the first 2 years of doing the gardening. I just let the garden go to pot, you know. So, but at the same time, I recognised the value in getting it sorted out. So I don't know what.
It's quite a good idea. So live on air, a walk around the garden,
and you get as well, like you get a free Cocker Spaniel on the tour as well.
Free Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
So, mate, I don't know. I'm just trying to tilt this. So I've got raspberries down here, mate. Like literally just raspberry canes, and I've got a little plant down there, and then you've got a fuchsia next to it, mate. I don't know if you can see the fuchsia there.
Well, I can't see the fuchsia.
But then if we go around it, mate, this is really. So, look, see, this is. So we've got like, oh God, sorry, mate. Try my best here to not scratch.
It's more, so you've got more light there than when I am, because here it's darkish, sort of twilight.
So, it's not bad here, mate. I mean, this is the only place.
It's hang on a minute. What's the time? It's 20 to 10 at night.
Well, mate, this little bit of the Norfolk coast is the only place on the east coast of England where you can watch the sunset over the sea, mate, because the coast faces west.
Yes, so that's interesting.
There's nowhere else on the east coast of England, mate, where you can watch the sun setting over the sea. But anyway, look, so we've got like, these are old water butts, mate. You can see there's some spuds just starting to poke their heads through there. I can
see them.
And then we've got some, obviously, these are spuds that were put in earlier here. And then you've got kale, we've got lots of carrots. And then these are some tomato plants down here that a customer gave me. They were literally just dying in his conservatory. And he said, oh, Chris, I can't do anything with them. Do you want them? So I put them in, and I'm pretty sure we'll get something from them. And then just quickly, mate. So
no chemtrails, that's good. Would you like to see?
Not at the moment. We get them, mate. We get lots of them here.
Because it is true that you do get more light up there than we do down here. I'm only, about 150 miles from you, I think, south.
That's bizarre, isn't it, mate?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see around, sort of like you've got a hosta and a ceanothus in here.
Oh, the hostas. The slugs love them, hostas.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, Barclay, that's genius, mate. So this is the Cocker Spaniel. Come on, move your bum. Good boy. But you remember we said about marigolds and carrots?
Yes.
So you can see we've got carrots just here. And then marigolds just here next to them, mate. And that's my philosophy, is just chuck it in wherever you can. And look, I'll just give you a quick kind of scope of how small my garden is, mate. So there's the fence at the end of the garden, mate. So it's not big at all.
Yeah.
And then this just down here, this raised bed is actually the grave of our Cocker Spaniel.
Oh, I know.
So, and then then we've just got like the little sort of sleeping dog on the slate. I don't know if you can see that. Just next
not
to him
quite.
there.
No. Oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I can see it now.
Yeah, and a couple of lupins. But again, mate, like I've got basically two main veg areas. There's this one here, and then over on the side of the shed. I don't know where am I looking. So over here, I think you can see a load of pots in the distance there. So that's the main veg growing areas. But then I'll just mix bits and pieces in, mate, wherever I can.
Good idea.
I'm going to go back in now, mate, just because I think we've pushed our luck as far as I dare with the
We've just about pushed it. It's starting to get a bit jerky, sort of outside.
Yeah. So
I just looked. I just seen your brickwork, and I think you've got stretcher bond there, which would bring the cottage to possibly about 1920s, 30s, something like that.
I think it is 19. Was it Jess? Was it 1920? Our house was built. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, you're right. It was 1920.
Yeah, because it looks as if it's got a cavity wall there, and cavity walls are in their infancy then, because that would be it, because you've got stretcher bond. So
there we go, mate. Oh, sorry about that. But
so I'm glad you haven't got a solid 9-inch brick wall, because they are a pain in the arse.
No,
Don't
well,
like
a
them.
couple of my customers got real solid walls, mate. But the thing is, it keeps it nice and cool in the summer. But in the winter, when they light a fire, bugger me, it gets hot in there quick.
It does. The thing with older, what you've got to watch for with an older property is that they had damp-proof course of slate, and as the building moves, the slate can crack. And they used to have 2 or 3 layers of it, depending on how posh the house was. If it was a very posh house, you'd have several layers, and that sometimes causes a bit of a problem. But as it's perfectly okay now, it's probably going to last for another couple of hundred
Yeah,
years. So
to
you
be
should be
fair,
all
mate,
right.
this will see us through. We've no
It's brilliant.
plans to renovate or you know, we certainly don't. We ain't got the money, mate. I'm a gardener. My wife's a part-time receptionist. We're never going to be
Well,
rich. I'm not particularly interested in being rich, Eric.
well, you are.
All I care
You are
about is,
rich
yeah,
because
exactly.
I
In my,
feel that you're extremely rich because well, what life means is you're rich in what you do.
exactly.
You're happy in what you do. I mean, when you
Yeah.
look at Charlie Boy, all the money in the world, what a miserable bastard.
Oh, he's a
Look at
prick, mate.
Alan Sugar, the most
Yeah.
miserable.
Oh, I can't stand that man. I really can't. I used to actually watch, mate. Do you know what? I told you I don't watch telly, mate. I haven't watched telly for 10 years. The Apprentice was the last thing that I watched on telly. It was the very last. That was the thing that I found hardest to shake. And I look back now and I think, what the hell did I see in that program?
That
It
was
was
the
just a
last
load
thing
of,
I watched on TV as
it's
well, and the
mental, isn't it,
miserable
mate?
bastards on it.
Yeah, and I was watching it on iPlayer. I was going on to BBC iPlayer to watch it, and it was literally. Do you know what? It took me about 3 years, I think, before I
Yeah.
kicked The Apprentice. So it's probably 7 years ago was the last series of The Apprentice I watched. But that was the very last TV program that I regularly sort of
But
watched, and I look back
they're on
now
an
and I think,
ego trip, weren't they?
yeah, they're all just knobheads, mate.
And
And
well, I mean,
it,
they could have said, "Well, thank you very much. It's not quite what we're looking for, but we wish you the best of luck with it." Polite, not
and it was all about bringing out the worst in people, wasn't it?
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think what they did in the, I mean, and again with things like Big Brother, I'm not going to lie, mate. I watched 2 or 3 series of Big Brother right back in the beginning because it fascinated me, like just like what people would do for a bit of fame and a slice of being on telly. It amazed me, mate. Do you remember The Word?
Yeah.
With Terry Christian. Do you remember that? It was
No, but I do remember "I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here."
yeah. Again, I
I
mean,
saw one of those, and I saw what's his name? That irritating Tony Blackburn drying his underpants over a fire, and I thought,
right.
how
I mean,
low can
I haven't
television
watched
get?
that, mate.
No.
That's one that my wife will watch. So occasionally I might catch a flash of it if I'm in the lounge at the same time as her. But mate, it's all just bollocks, isn't it? There's nothing
It
on
is.
telly, mate, that I want to watch. Even I mean, the last things I used to watch sort of 10, 15 years ago would be documentaries because I'd think that I was learning something. You know, but now I look back on it and I just think again, it's just the same narrative, but just being pushed through motion pictures instead of them like it being on the news. Or again, it's just bollocks. A lot of the documentaries that I used to watch now, I think if I watched them now, I'd be turning them off within a couple of minutes because I don't think I'd agree with it.
Well,
So,
I'm the same. In fact, I know it sounds. I probably you get a bit spoiled because the last time I saw television, I was in the sorry to laugh that bank, and they've got this bloody great screen up, pumping out News 24,
a lot of
and you
places
look
do
at
that
it and
now,
you
don't
think,
they?
what a load of shit. But
Yeah.
going back to chat, we've got here Louise Wilcox. She says, Chris, does the man EITH the Barrow go to the local beach? Because we have a man here who does.
Right. So I'm
You're
guessing
talking about
that,
getting seaweed for the garden.
yeah, I think Louise is probably a little bit further. The
Hello, he's
beach.
gone.
No, I'm here, mate. I'm here.
Oh, he's back again. There he is.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
said
No, that
Louise
was
is a little
just
bit further.
yeah. I think Louise is probably a little bit further up the coast than what I am. Where I live, the beach is about it's about an hour and a half's walk. Although we do have a beach, the village, the sea used to come a lot further inland here. So the sea used to come in right up to where the village is now. But over the course of time, there's I guess been land reclamation, and they've drained bits and that. And it's
Yeah.
about an hour from where I live to walk to the beach. I should think from the centre of the village, probably about an hour and 15, 20 minutes. So I'm not aware of a man with a barrow. But it might be a little bit further up the coast. We're you know, we're sort of at the bottom end of the west facing Norfolk coast, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. Now, earlier we were talking about mushrooms, and you said you saw them.
That would be
Louise
Liberty
said,
caps, yeah.
would that be Liberty Cup mushrooms,
Yes,
Chris?
it would be Roydon Common, Louise. Roydon Common would be where we would go, and that would be the place where, like I say, even probably now, if you go there in September, you'll probably see dozens of teenagers running around with their, like, we used to get up at like 4 a.m. and bike down from the little village that I lived in, which was about 6-7 miles away. And we'd get there at like 3:30 a.m, and you'd be running around just trying to get them before anyone else got to them. They've got like a knobbly bit on top of them. And you used to take them home, and I mean, you could eat them wet, but it was better we'd dry them out and then just chomp on them. And then, like, we used to go camping, so we'd take a tent to the local common, take a bag of mushrooms, and just get spaced out and sleep out in the stars. It was awesome.
Now that's fascinating, because we've got Paul Green. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in there. Sorry,
no,
Chris.
not at all, mate. It's all good. It's good to get people involved, mate.
By prepping over the last 10 years. Same here, mate. I've been prepping for most for longer than that, for years.
Do you know what,
I mean,
mate?
I've got tins that are about 15 years old.
Yeah, mate, I've got tins that are already 5 years out of date, and they're fine. You know, they're going to be fine. They're sealed. They're The only thing I'm fussy about is if a tin's got a dent in it, mate, I don't keep it. It goes. Once it's got a dent in it, then it's gone. But, mate, I don't pay any attention to best before dates or use by dates.
I don't. The only thing I am a bit iffy about with tins is fish. If it's a bit old, you've got to be careful with fish, and also tomatoes, because the acid burns inside the tin. Yeah,
I've heard about this. Yeah, but don't they coat the inside of the tins with something nowadays to stop that
plastic? So they say.
Probably, which probably isn't great either. But I've got quite a big stash of chopped tomatoes, so don't tell me that. I'll be devastated. I'm gonna have to start eating them, aren't I now?
Well, the oldest I had was, I think it was a soup that was about 20 years old, and 20 years past its sell by date. It's all right, you know.
Yeah, mate,
but who's this geezer? Robert Dorr. Hello, Robert. Good evening, all. Watch your Chris.
Hello, Robert.
I think he needs a note from his parents for that. He's a bit late.
Bless him. Top man.
Hello, Robert.
Yeah. Like I say, I really enjoy the stuff he puts up on the comment boards and I mean, I've seen quite a few mutual. There's obviously a lot of crossover from the Richie Allen show with your own show as well. There's been a few names that I've recognised. Pretty sure Louise posts on Richie's site.
Does she?
Yeah.
She's here. She said Pete Free is poor old Pete. Poor soul.
Yeah, Pete doesn't get a good deal, mate.
No, he doesn't, does he? It's like Bill Stickers. They keep saying he's going to be prosecuted. He's very low in good nutrients. Is he? Poor sod.
Again, I think, like I say, there's an agenda to push you over to these crap mediums. They don't want people growing their own food, mate. They don't want people that can be self-resilient, self-sufficient. They don't want that. They want you dependent on them. And that's, like, I think a lot of this, like taking peat out of fertilizer, and there's a lot of laws, aren't there now, restricting nitrogen use and things like that. They've gone really. I mean, you've seen what's happening in the Netherlands, have you, with the farmers over there?
Oh, force
freaking insane, mate.
Land.
People that have been farming for 7-8 generations, you know, that have been farming the same bit of land, and it's all the small farmers that it's targeted at. So the big multi conglomerates, you know, they no problem. But is again, Eric, this is why I think it's so important. If they don't want us to do it, we need to do it. We really do, on whatever scale you can do it on. people need to grow food, mate, and people need to tend to their
Correct.
gardens. And I'll just say as well, Eric, this is something that's hit me and my wife the last 6 months. I mean, we've had a difficult couple of years. We lost a dad 2 years ago. Her mum broke a hip
Oh,
while her
sorry
dad
about
was
that.
in hospital. Oh, mate, it is what it is. It's life, isn't it? Her mum broke a hip while her dad was in hospital dying. So we had 2 years we kept her mum out of an old people's home because we didn't want to put her in that environment. Unfortunately, she's bedbound now, mate. She's, for her own safety, she's got to be around other people. So she is in a care home now. But the point I was making is we had these 2 years of just carnage and chaos, and everything in our lives we let go. We stopped eating proper meals, mate. We stopped going to bed at decent times. We were constantly knackered. We weren't looking after our house. We weren't looking after our garden. When we started sorting the garden out, just, you know, March time this year, we started cooking meals together. We eat together every night now. We cook a proper meal together every night. We do batch cooking at the weekends. We're also getting our house sorted out now because, I mean, as you can see, it's quite cluttered, mate, and jumbled and full of crap. But the point is, mate, that just getting your garden in order, it'll set up so many other parts of your life as well, mate, because it'll give you the motivation and the incentive. You'll see an area, that a bit of space that perhaps was neglected before, you weren't doing anything special with it. You turn that around, mate, I guarantee you'll start making other really positive changes in your life as well.
I know what people are putting in their front gardens where I live, and I hate it. Plastic grass.
Oh, mate, plastic
bloody
grass.
hate it.
Yeah,
it's
It's
horrible.
shocking, mate. Shocking.
It's technicolor green all year round.
Yeah,
and it kills worms. It kills wildlife.
yeah. Well,
It's
you're
horrible.
you're sealing the earth, aren't you? Basically, you
You
might as
are.
well just pour concrete over it.
Yeah.
It's,
Oh,
mate. And
it's
again,
vile.
but
There's another one here. It says, Robert. Robert says, how does Chris feel about reclassification of the word organic? Yes, they're reclassifying it.
Robert, I hadn't realised it had been reclassified. If you give me a little bit more insight, mate, and sort of what I do struggle with. I mean, like, I buy organic garlic, and that's grown in China. I don't believe them. Like, simply, I think I don't believe that anything that's grown in China is organic. So I think that it's a term that is probably applied to a lot of food that probably isn't what we would call organic. Maybe.
Good point, because it's like carrots. Now, carrots to me should be about sort of that long.
Yeah, it shouldn't be huge, should
They've
they?
got these jumbo-sized carrots, and they say organic.
Yeah.
I don't think they are.
No, I've seen that as well. The only organic carrots I'll buy from the supermarket are the ones that have still got the grass tails on the end, and
That's it.
Look
That's what
like carrots.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about. That you can get bags, can't you? And they look like the other carrots, basically, but they've got organic. Yeah, mate. Like I say, I mean, soon I won't need to buy carrots from anyone. In about 2 weeks, mate, I'm gonna have enough freaking carrots to keep me going through till Christmas.
Trouble, though. You've got to share it with other people because you have an abundance of things.
Absolutely.
You can't eat it in time.
No, and you should share anyway, mate. This is what we were put here to do. We were put here to live together, to coexist, but to also to help each other through this experience, whatever it is, mate. Whatever you personally, I'm down with Bill Hicks, mate. I think Bill Hicks had it spot on. There's that little, that little 3-minute segment at the end of one of his last shows where he talks about life is a roller coaster. You know the one?
Yeah.
And mate, that to me, that encapsulates what life is. He's just nailed it there in that little skit. And there's a lot of truth in comedy, isn't there?
This is why
many a true word has been said in jest, as we know. And I think again with Bill Hicks, I think they whacked him. And I think they whacked him because, he was like, he knew what was going on and he was telling people about it. I mean, he even says it in that skit, doesn't he? Shut him up. I've got too much invested in this ride, So
it's funny,
I think we just got to help each other, mate. And don't hate. Even the people that are trying to enforce this on us, don't hate. Because if you hate, you're taking your vibration right down, mate. You're going down to the bottom.
Negative karma, because negative attracts negative.
You've got to love, mate. You've got to love, and you've got to mean it as well. When you say that you have love for all humanity, you need to Doesn't matter who the person is. I mean, like we've fallen out massively with one of our neighbours, which I won't bore you with the details, but it was a husband-wife thing. They're now separated. The husband doesn't live there anymore. The wife doesn't speak to us. It's been really, yeah. I mean, but again, me and my wife, we've reflected on this, and we accept that we've handled this situation really badly as well. You know, it's not all the fault of the woman that lives next door to us. We could have been more compassionate. We could have been more understanding. We probably should have helped her instead of judging her at times and things like that. So it's an experience you want to learn from. But I still have love for this woman. If this woman come to my door in bits tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning because she got some kind of emergency, mate, we'd help her. You know?
Yes.
Even though she hasn't been especially nice to us recently, we'd still help her because that's what.
You don't know what pain's inside, because I've normally found the people that are rude to you, they're suffering inside in some way.
I believe it.
You just don't know what's going on in their minds, you know. Yeah. Now, the thing we got here, someone said, but you look, I think it was Ancient Ruby said, but you look alike. I think it was. Apologise if it wasn't. In terms of being related, you only need to go back 40 generations, and there is more people than ever existed. So, yes, we're all related via larger families. Exactly. Do the math on it, and it's exponential. Yes, that's right. Because someone said we look very much alike, Chris and I.
They did, and I'll take that. Yeah. To be fair,
we do look alike actually.
There got here, resemblance.
John Basilone in Alabama, in America, said crude oil is organic.
Well, he's right, also, I guess, isn't he?
Well, it comes out of the earth and shouts bum, doesn't it? Because it's crude oil. Sorry, terrible joke.
Yeah, but I mean, he's right. I guess it is, isn't it? It's I'm not sure. I'm just going to see if we can find a charger for this now, mate, because the one that I thought was a charger turns out to have the word Samsung. We're coming up to time, actually.
We're just over 2 hours, so we better round it off.
We've got 10% battery, mate. So if we can wrap up relatively soon, we'll be all right. I won't need to move.
Now, Robert Dawes come up with something interesting here. Chris, have you heard the theory that the Cornish accent has manifested itself in the Caribbean?
It wouldn't surprise me, mate.
One thing I have noticed is the Caribbean accent and the Tyneside accent is very similar. And some people in Wales, there's certain parts of Wales where if you hear them talking, you think they're Welsh, but they're not. They're from the Caribbean.
I think
I've actually heard that. There's certain regions.
Yeah, again, I think like everything we've been taught is a lie, and I think that the movements of people in history, it's not what we're told it is. I think there's probably been other civilizations before us that have built maybe potentially the pyramids and things like that. Who knows? So,
I don't think the Egyptians did it.
Do you know about all the Egyptian stuff they found in the Grand Canyon? And then
yes.
Every article ends with the words, doesn't it? The artifacts were taken to the Smithsonian Institute for further examination, and then
That's it.
Yeah. So
I think the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, that sums out where there's this bloody great warehouse and they're putting all the stuff there, you know.
Yeah,
but
mate. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yorkshire Rose, because I said earlier that people in East Anglia coined the phrase "pissed as a newt" when they misheard what the American Air Force
and here we are,
when they said "pissed as an Inuit," and she said she lives in Canada. The Inuit cannot metabolize alcohol, so yes, they get very intoxicated with little.
Same with the Aborigines, mate, in Australia. When I was in Australia, you see the Abos, because they get like reparation money off the Australian government. So they get like a monthly or a weekly payment. And as soon as these guys get this, sorry, mate, I've just got to shut this door that's popped open. Otherwise, we'll end up with an unwelcome cat or a dog. The Abos, mate, in Australia had like literally no tolerance to alcohol, so they'd be hammered on like a can, and they used to sniff petrol quite a bit as well. Not obviously all Aboriginal people, but in the cities you would see this kind of behaviour when I was out there, and they'd be hammered, mate, on a can of lager.
It's because I suppose their metabolism is not used to it. Because funny enough, there's two groups of people I've never met, and that is I've never met an Aborigine and I've never met an Eskimo in my life.
No, I've never met the second one, mate. I don't know of any. but I met
No, I
quite a
don't have
few. I
any.
mean, that they come up asking for money and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
poor sods.
yeah, I mean, Australia, mate, it's a pretty screwed up country. I found that out when I
Mm.
landed there, mate. They detained me for hours, mate, hours when I
Really?
landed at Brisbane, and they wouldn't let me into the country until I'd been interviewed by the immigration, the state police, and the federal police. I had to give the address of
Mm.
where I was staying. If I crossed a state
Mm.
line, I had to inform. And this was all because they tore my bags apart and they found, and I'm talking like crumbs of cannabis in the bottom of my bag, like nothing that you could do
Mm.
anything with, but it was literally crumbs. But I did a silly thing. I flew out to Australia in November and it was really cold in the UK. And I had this big, thick Lambretta Parker on when I left the UK
Mm.
because it was really cold. And I still had it on when I got off the plane at Brisbane Airport. And I think they looked at me and thought that I was some kind of big time Charlie smuggler or something. So they decided that they were going to rip apart everything that I brought with me, which is what they did. And when they found these little crumbs of cannabis in my bag. So they were
Well,
brutal, mate.
Australia, you're right, it is a screwed up country. But I mean,
It
look
is,
what
mate.
happened with those nuclear tests when they left the Aborigines there. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the terrible things. But then um, it's strange, really, because when you look at Australia, it's people really only live around the outside, don't they?
Just on the coast, mate.
On the coast.
95%, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
they've got that big area, haven't they, in the middle?
yeah.
That's
Alice
called.
Springs, the only
Yeah,
place you
but
can go.
no, I was thinking of the military base that's there. I can't remember
Yeah.
what it's called. Is it? No, I was going to say
Oh.
Palm. It isn't Palm Springs or anything. It's
Oh,
got
hang on,
some.
hang on. Well, they had the rockets, didn't it? It was Woomera.
Is that what it
Woomera?
is?
I think it's
Yeah,
Woomera.
something.
Yeah.
There's a name of the base, I think, but
Mm.
there's some nefarious stuff that goes on over there. I
Mm.
think the CIA have got a heavy contingent. I mean, there's bits of Australia where people just don't ever go, isn't there? And God knows
That's
what they
right.
get up to over there. So,
But
but I mean,
it's a sort of country, though. I know it sounds a bit weird. Would be last on my list of places to go because it's just flat, nothing.
do you
Most
know
of the
what, mate? It
time.
was. I really wanted to go. I mean, I was lucky. My brother's
Mm.
lived out there twice. So he lived in Sydney the first time, and then the second time he went out there, he lived in this place called Noosa, and it's about an hour and a half north of Brisbane. And it's Michael Jackson used to have a house there. Richard Branson's got a house there. It's like
Yeah.
really, really beautiful, mate. Like,
Yeah.
and so because he was living there, all I had to do was pay for my flights. So I went out and spent some time out there, and it was somewhere I'd always wanted to go, and it was amazing, but it was also one of the most clinically repressive places I've been to. Like, I mean, I'm a smoker. I smoke tobacco and I smoke cannabis, but even tobacco smoking over there was frowned upon, mate. Like,
Really?
it was.
And they used to be really laid back, didn't they? I mean,
They
Australia. I
did,
mean,
I think, at
Cairns is
one
supposed to be
time.
the place to be the real laid back place, so they
Where's
say.
that?
But
Sorry,
Cairns, which is up the sort of
that's
right
up
hand
north,
side,
isn't it? That's
yeah, the
right up
north,
above
yeah.
Darwin. Well, I went to
Yeah.
this place called Nimbin, which is in New South Wales, and it's a hippie village that was set up, I think, in the 70s after a music festival was held there. It was like in the middle of nowhere. They had this music festival, and then all these hippies stayed and just built a community there. And it's supposed to be this marvelous, chilled out, really cool place to go and visit. Everyone's like, oh, you got to go to Nimbin. You got to go to Nimbin. So we hired a car. We drove. It took about 4.5 hours to get there, and it was crap, mate. It was absolute crap. It was. I bought some of the worst weed I've ever bought in my life. It was just shocking, absolute pants. The people weren't particularly friendly. They seemed interested in was how much money can we make out of these people.
Really?
It didn't have much of a hippie vibe to it, mate.
No, it is a funny place when you look at Australia. But regarding Cairns, no, I think it's up. You go from Sydney round the other way, don't you? It's up on the right hand side.
Is it on the other side? So in W?
Yes, on the other
above
side. Because
WA,
Darwin's
My
up the
Australian geography is not
because all the
great.
Australians, when I've worked with Australians, I haven't been to Australia, but they always said when you ever mention Darwin, they go, "Ugh, Darwin. It looks quite a nice place,
Yeah, I
actually.
was
I've
gonna
never
say,
been there."
it's
You
part of
know,
the Northern Territory, isn't it, Darwin?
yeah,
And they had that really tyrannical medicine mandate, didn't they, in the Northern Territory,
that's right.
where
That's
they were
right. The
literally
worst
going
was
and knocking
New
on
South
people's
Wales.
doors that hadn't had it,
Yeah.
and trying to, yeah.
Well,
Australia, mate. I'm glad I went when I did. I certainly wouldn't go back there now, mate.
well, someone's put, we refuse to allow any people in our house, in our
Love it.
home. The
Yeah,
gas and electricity company hate it.
hate it. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's my attitude. I won't allow someone, if someone wants to talk to me, when they come to my door, they'll have to lower this
Oh,
stupid
yeah.
thing
I
in front
wouldn't
of
have
their
anyone
face.
wear a mask in my house,
No,
mate. We
no.
don't get many visitors anyway. I mean, we like the sort of pre all the nonsense 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I was on my journey. My wife was very much on, like, she just basically used to say to me, God, it must be horrible to be such a cynic all the time. But then when the sickness came, and then she started to see things that I'd mentioned that were probably coming, and they'd start happening, and she took a bit more interest, and then started looking at things herself and information herself. And she was booked in to have her, but she got sick and couldn't go the day that it happened, and then changed her mind. Which, I mean, I used to go into my shed every night the week beforehand and blah myself, cry. Sorry, there's that Norfolk word, blah. But cry myself, mate. Silly, because she was going to have it, and I was devastated about it, mate. But luckily, she didn't. And but everybody that we knew prior to that, we don't see them anymore now. We're considered to be a little bit unhinged, perhaps. Which is great, to be called crazy in this world is, I'll take that as a compliment, mate.
I can actually understand why people become reclusive. I could never understand why Howard Hughes became reclusive. I can now, actually.
Yeah. But, God, we live in our own little world, mate. We've got 4 dogs. They've all got personalities. We do the voices for them all. They speak to us. We've created. We've got words that only me and her would undernd.
It's nice, maybe. But
yeah,
anyway, we're well over time. We've gone over 2 hours.
Yeah.
So we've got to sort of wind it down now. Thank you very much, Chris. Please come on again. I think it's really gone well tonight. And thanks for coming on.
I really enjoyed chatting, mate.
And because Deb's not here, I've got to do the outro, which I've lost, of course. It's here somewhere. Here it is. And thank you very much for joining us tonight.
It's been my pleasure. It really has.
And it's been great having you on. Thank you. And remember, we'll be back same place, same time next week. And of course, thanks to Robert Dorr for getting arranging for Chris to come on.
Yeah, thanks, Robert.
And without Robert, the show wouldn't have gone ahead. And let's hope that Deb's back with us soon. And thank you very much for joining us. And remember, whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh. So good night.
Spot on.
And see you next week.